All right. It looks like we are live. All right, David, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Where are you at right now?
Colombia. I'm Colombian and I live here.
Okay, Colombia. How do you like it there?
Not so much,
Oh,
to
gotcha.
be honest.
Um, all right. I'm in Oregon. I like Oregon pretty well. It's the weather's good. A lot of greenery here. I don't know much about Colombia, other than half the time I get coffee. I believe it's comes from Colombia,
Hmm.
and I like the movie Encanto. I think that that cartoon is set in Colombia. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, anyways, so yeah, let's so I did a video reaction to Carnism Debunks Vegetarian is the opposite of veganism. And then after
Hmm.
that reaction, I did a conversation with him about it. And then how we set up this talk was you were in the comments there. So
Hmm.
let's go ahead and yeah, did you have a question for me?
Yeah. What's the definition of veganism for you?
Gotcha.
Because, well, I
Okay,
think,
so for me right now, and I need to write it down, but what I think the definition of veganism is it is a moral philosophy that us humans choose to cause practically as little harm and force to any non-human animal as possible as it is concerned to each individual human that holds the philosophy. So it would be up to each individual to decide what level that is. And let me just comment a little further on that, because I don't think it's as simple as somebody can say I'm vegan, but I also eat hot dogs or something like that.
mhm.
Because then I think somebody can say, well, do you need to? And then there can be a philosophical conversation with that person, and you can point out that no, you do not need to consume this thing. But I don't think there's any way to have a flat out description of what veganism must be. So I think it has to be up to each individual with ongoing conversations.
Okay. Sorry, do you know the history of the movement?
I know a bit. Yeah. Somebody named Leslie and some other dude I can't think of the name of.
Donald
That
Watson?
yeah, Donald. Yeah. They were part of a maybe a vegetarian movement, and they decided to leave that movement and start their own veganism. This was in like what the 1950s, and I believe that's where the definition of not exploiting animals as far as possible and practicable is at the
Uh, Not really. Well, not exploiting animals is part of the definition. Uh, Leslie Gross defined it as a doctrine that humans should live without exploiting animals. That's
okay.
the short definition. And the as far as practicable and possible part was added like in the 60s, I think, or
Okay.
maybe 70s, I think.
Gotcha. Is that the definition you like to use?
Yeah, it is what
It is the definition. Yeah.
the founders of the founders of the movement agreed on. It was a they had a like a meeting of several people who were vegan at the time, the vegan society, and they agreed upon that definition. So I think that's
Yeah.
the definition that we should use as vegans.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
believe in, sorry, if we believe in any other definition, then we shouldn't call ourselves vegans.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I mean, words can evolve over time and change. Some people will refer to the idea of being vegan as like not consuming animals. Like, let's imagine the origins of the definition. uh, were to not consume animals, and let's say there were a few other things tacked on, but one of it was to not consume animals. Well, then as we all philosophize and come up with these different things, and recognize that some of us vegans don't care about something like roadkill. You have roadkill, and then you're consuming this thing, but there was no force put onto this animal. There's no rights violations. There's no whatever. Then we could say, hey, these people back in the day had this definition, but we recognize that what it's about shouldn't include this thing. And would you well, first of all, I guess I'm curious, do you think it is not vegan to eat roadkill?
Of course, it's not vegan.
Really?
Yep.
Wait, that doesn't even fit the violations you just described in the definition, because you said
No.
that you said exploiting. Would you consider it exploiting if they're dead already?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, you're using it. Exploiting means use.
Yeah. Animal use, you reject. If you're a vegan, you reject all animal use for human purposes.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, so I see that you want to fit it into the definition, but do you personally find it immoral to use the body of something that has died on its own?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe it's immoral to to practice necrophilia?
Immoral? No.
No. Okay.
I would frown upon it for various different reasons. I would not want
Moral reasons.
more of concerns of, for example, kids that like to torment animals might be more likely to grow up and be serial killers. So somebody that wants to have sex with a dead body, I would be skeptical of that person and what they do outside of that. I wouldn't want them babysitting my kids because they seem like maybe they have something mentally wrong with them, but not for moral reasons. I would not think that there's anything wrong morally that you could do with a dead body.
Do you think that it's immoral to commodify other human beings?
Can you explain a little further?
Like you treat them like resources, like you can exploit them.
No,
Right.
living ones, no.
Okay. And if grandma dies, we should feed them to lions, maybe, in your utilitarian calculations.
Sure. So yeah, I actually think
okay.
I actually think maybe we should, if it was healthy, feed human flesh to pets, like to cats and dogs. I think that'd probably be the most moral route we could go if it was healthy. Yeah.
Okay, so you see a problem with necrophilia, but not with feeding grandma to lions, just to.
No,
Just
I don't see a problem with the necrophilia. Like it would all come down to research. Now, I don't know if there's research that would show that somebody that wants to commit that act would likely have other issues, but that would be my concern. If we found out that committing a certain act would mean that they are likely having this other issue. But no, if I could press a button and magically know that this person wanted to have sex with dead bodies, and then aside from that, they were just the greatest person ever, I would have no moral qualms with that act.
Okay, so you don't think that maybe this will promote or incite or maybe inspire, I don't know how to say it, people to keep committing some further acts against sentient beings?
Are we talking about the necrophilia still?
Yeah, or necrophagy. How do you say that? Necrophagy, or eating dead bodies.
Oh, gotcha. No, so for example, if it was illegal to kill animals to eat them, and somebody wanted to eat roadkill, the idea that could lead them to want to kill an animal to eat it, I don't think we can. I don't think we should make laws or moral decisions off of slippery slopes. I don't think we should say this thing that is fine shouldn't happen because it might lead to this other thing.
Okay, so you don't think that because people find uh, dead flesh appetizing, it could create a problem in the future?
If it does, I don't think we should call the non-problem a problem just because it could lead to a problem.
Because that's what the forefathers of the movement foresaw. Like any use that we do of any animal has led to abuse, exploitation, massacre, all those things that we should avoid. And the vegan movement is an emancipation movement, so it's like, well, we shouldn't think of animals as resources just so that they are free from human use, human exploitation.
Yeah, and I agree for the most part, even to probably an extreme. I probably feel that more than say your average vegan, actually, even though I view the definition slightly different, because I think your average vegan probably is not against animal ownership, like pets. It's becoming more and more popular to be against breeding, but that owning rescue animals is perfectly fine, and I'm not in favor of this, and because I don't think we should exploit animals. I don't think humans should pretty much have any contact with animals aside from if you're out in nature going on a hike and you see an animal. If a bird flies up and lands on your finger, that's fine. But anything where we use force, for the most part, I am against, if possible. Yeah.
So you don't think that regarding animals as chattel property is wrong?
No. I don't think we should have them as property at all.
Because that's one of the pillars of veganism. We shouldn't think of animals as property.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think that we should have pets?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I wasn't sure because a lot of people are on the fence with that.
We can maybe help animals that are in need and give them a home or live with them. But pets is like a term that we use them for our own benefit. Like, okay, I want to have some companionship, so I buy, or I go out and take some animal and keep the animal as property.
Yeah,
And that is not vegan, according to the definition of the founders of the movement.
gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I would feel that even the helping and keeping would be something like that. Now, I don't want to come across extreme. I'm not saying that should be a top focus necessarily. I don't know exactly what we should do with rescue animals, but when you have an animal that is in your house and the doors are shut, the windows are shut, that animal cannot leave, it might be the best thing for that animal in that moment, but it is still us keeping it by force. And I would say that in most cases, it's for our own gain.
If it is for our own gain, then that would fit into the category of exploitation. But if we are just trying to help the animal, I don't think it's exploitation.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how we would break that down and know for sure. Like, I wonder. Yeah. Well, one of the complicated elements of it is that it kind of puts it in demand by showing something that somebody might enjoy. Like, we might be against breeding dogs to sell them, But if we own a dog that we rescued and this is a cute dog and people see you with this dog, they go, oh, I want to go buy my own dog. And so I think that we kind of normalize it. It's funny because I am going the route you were going where it's about the slippery slope, where it's like the issue isn't the problem, it's what it leads to. And it's the normalizing it. It makes people go, oh, it's okay to own these animals and it's so cute and I want one. And I have this same issue because I have 3 rescue guinea pigs and I post too much about them on social media. I probably shouldn't, because then people will go to the store and they'll buy these guinea pigs and then they're in demand and they'll get so really I think if people rescue animals, they probably shouldn't show them off. And even then, in the long run, I don't think pets should exist at all. Like I don't think animal, like, I don't just mean the word pet. I mean animals that are domesticated. I don't think they should exist unless they can be rewilded or however that's worded.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I don't know about the rewilding thing, but I don't think animals as companionship should exist.
Okay.
Maybe in a vegan future, maybe they will go extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think that it's a slippery slope if it has already happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that encourages it. So if you take your dog to the dog park and your dog is a rescue dog and somebody witnesses you and that dog and they think it's cute and they want to buy that breed of dog for their own personal gain, then I think it's a demand, like it just adds to the demand. But what's the alternative? I don't know if there's a better alternative. There'd have to be a law in place to make it a better alternative. So I don't know.
Okay. So do you think it's okay if it's a stray dog with no recognizable breed?
No, I mean, there would still be the same issue if you normalize owning this animal and it makes somebody want to own one. I don't know how much that would cut down on the purchasing of animals by not showing them off. But I think one of the biggest problems with animal ownership is them living poor lives. So I would rather the animal be out running around at a big dog park or something than to be cooped up at the house just to not have other people see it. I don't know. But maybe it's better just to euthanize them all if they're all domesticated. I really don't know. But what I can say is as long as we keep them like as rescue pets, it will be so normalized that it'll be harder to get away from the ownership. I think the if we want there to be no animals owned as pets, the best thing to do is to refrain from having animals as pets, even rescued ones, just to have that strong stance. And I'll give you a quick example of why I think so. I always compare this to American slavery. If I was around in the 1700s in the South and there was a bunch of slaves being sold and I was against slavery, but I had millions of dollars and I could just easily buy a slave or two and say, hey, I'm against slavery. I can't legally really free you or anything, but I'm going to buy you and you can just live at my house. You can eat. I'll get you all the food you want. You'll have the greatest life that you can in this world where slavery exists. And you'll just have this great time. And I think most people would say that's the good route to go. If you can do that, that's better than them going to a slave owner that's going to whip them and kill them. But the problem is you're putting them in demand. You're buying 1 or 2 slaves, and then the people that go and figure out how many slaves they sold, therefore how many they need to go get from Africa, they're going to need that many more. And so they're going to keep breeding more slaves and bringing more slaves over. And the easiest way to show I don't support this at all is to not partake.
So you don't reject slavery per se.
Explain that further.
So if the treatment is good, you can have a slave and treat him or her well. And
No, I'm saying not to do that. Like,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, that's the vegan position with animals. We shouldn't have animals as slaves or as slaves or property or commodities or you know um, yeah, property or commodities or slaves.
Yeah, I mean, I think they essentially are. Now, I know most people I know that have pets, they love them, the ones that have rescue animals. I'm just using the word pet, but I'm referring to like rescue animals as well. But they love them. They only have them because they want to rescue them. They treat them as well as they can. But I don't think there's an example where it should be done. I mean, maybe it should be done versus other things, but I don't think it's in the grand scheme of things. I don't think it's good, but I do not know what the right option is. Yeah.
So if you have a child and you keep the child cooped up, is that exploitation? If it's for the child's benefit or not getting lost or not getting kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would just come down to opinion. I talked about this on an earlier talk today, where there's a lot of studies and books about helicopter parenting, where if you don't want your kid to get kidnapped or whatever or hit by cars, you keep them in the house. But then the overall well-being of the kid, they're not going to be really good at socializing and knowing how to do well in the world. So I think that's more of a complicated thing where a parent just has to hopefully read up on it, care about their kid, and do their best. But on something that small of a detail of inside versus outside, it'd be hard to judge, I think.
Okay, but I don't mean all the time. It's just at the times that you deem that it's reasonable, reasonable to keep the child protected and not allow the child to go out, for example, at night or whatever.
Oh, I see. No, I mean, that seems like a good thing to do to protect
You,
them.
yeah, because that's what we do with dogs. For example, if I have a rescue dog, and maybe I wouldn't I wouldn't leave the door open so that the dog uh, gets lost
Yeah.
gets lost.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is that, we've domesticated these animals, so we've made them to where they can't survive in the wild. But if they're with us, then we kind of have to force them to live somewhat of hard lives because we don't want them to get ran over by cars. We don't want them to be out at night, all these things. So they're
Mhm.
essentially trapped inside of this house. Now, I don't know. I don't want to compare a dog to humans. I don't like, I think myself, like, it's horrible to be trapped in a house. We learned this during the pandemic. Like, we want to get out and do all kinds of things. And so I imagine dogs don't want to just have this one backyard that they're in 99% of the time and one house that they're in 99% of the time. And, but it's complicated because they might live longer as rescue pets than they would if they were wild animals out in the wild. But I don't know who we are to make that decision. I think any form of force of an animal to be somewhere is some kind of exploitation. But I don't. It's hard when the alternative is it just dying quickly in the wild. If somebody finds an injured panda and a veterinarian nurses it back to health, but it has to stay at some kind of a animal rescue place because if it went back in the wild, it would get killed instantly. I don't know if that means that we should have animal rescue places and sanctuaries and zoos, friendly zoos, if there is such a thing, and then rescue pets, or if we should just let nature take its course. If we came across an injured animal in nature while we're out filming a documentary, Should we try to fix them, or should we just say the animals do what they do and then we do what we do and we don't intervene, if intervening means that we have to own it later?
Uh, I don't know. That we have to analyze the specific case, but I think it's outside the realm of veganism. It's not exploitation. We are not talking about animal exploitation anymore, and we are talking about moral virtues, maybe not moral obligations, which is what concerns veganism.
Okay. Um, okay. Well, let's break it down to the most commonly thing talked about, which would be something like crop deaths. Then, so I like the idea of truly engaging with these anti-vegans that want to bring up crop deaths. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about these topics, and although I think it's reasonable to protect our food to some degree, um, I would say that if we spray things onto our food and
Mhm.
and that kills off insects, which I'm not even going to pretend to care a large amount about insects at this moment, but if also that kills off, I believe 67 million birds. I can't remember the amount of time it was that they died off because of insecticides. Um, and then you have the endless amount of rodents from rodenticides. Um, the question becomes, is it reasonable to eat something unhealthy or to overeat that causes these deaths? So if somebody was like 100 pounds overweight, 200 pounds overweight, and they were eating vegan cakes or something, and this food was made from these crops that we had to kill things to get our food, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's not animal exploitation. We are not using those animals for our personal gain. We are just protecting what we now have, like as a food, as a strategy or method of food production. But we are not using those animals, and it's outside the realm of veganism for me. It's
Interesting.
it's just it's just that because of the utilitarian thought that it's about causing the least amount of harm, that
Hmm.
people take advantage of that idea, which is not veganism, to talk about crop deaths and justify animal exploitation. So I think it's very wrong to take that approach, because it's harming the movement. It's harming the advancement of veganism.
I I don't think it is, but maybe I just care about a different. Maybe it's harmful to the idea of veganism you're referring to,
Mhm.
whereas the idea I'm referring to I think is a more important issue, and therefore it's not harming that one. But let me bring this example to you because it seems kind of bothersome morally. If you if you had to put out rodenticides to
Mhm.
kill rodents to be able to eat the food that they were going to eat of ours, like to protect our food we're growing.
Mhm.
And we could detect how much suffering and pain, well, and death, that comes from that. So when they eat the poison and it slowly kills them and they're in pain, if there is
Mhm.
some way to scientifically discover that if I had this plate full of sliced up apples and it caused a certain amount of pain, and then I think you might have seen this when I was talking to to George.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then on this other plate, you had a steak, like a piece of beef,
Mhm.
um, and you could measure exactly how much pain and suffering that caused to get that steak. Are you telling me that it is more moral or just more vegan to eat the apples if the pain was doubled in the rodents?
But it's not about pain and suffering.
Mhm.
It's a rejection of the idea that animals are food. For example, in this case,
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
And
So the
so,
vegan thing, by your definition, would be to eat the apples. But which
yeah,
one would be the more moral choice?
well, if grandma dies, should we eat grandma and spare some animal deaths because of crop deaths?
If grandma was healthy, sure.
Really? Should we eat grandma?
I mean, I don't know how I'd feel about that in the sense that I've always known that it's supposed to be very unhealthy to eat other humans because it something bad happens there. There's some kind of like I believe I've heard that cannibalism leads to some kind of insanity, but that doesn't matter. We're kind of talking hypothetically, anyways. Um, y- um, it would depend on what we're referring to, but yeah, if eating grandma's flesh was healthy and not eating it meant that we had to cause other suffering to another animal, it would have to be more moral to eat grandma outside of religious ideas.
So you don't think that if humans regard other humans as food, that would lead to many problems?
No.
Not really, really,
I mean,
because that's
it's
what happens
possible.
with animals, certain animals.
It's
It doesn't.
possible that it could lead people to attempt, like, because we'd be talking about eating, like, it would still be illegal to kill people. So we're talking about if there was a problem that was caused, it would be something like leading somebody that's obsessed with eating humans because of this to kill somebody and eat them illegally, or to try to sneakily kill somebody with some kind of in some kind of way to make it look like it was natural so they could eat them or something. But that really wouldn't change much of anything. If we either have things be illegal or we don't have them be illegal and they're moral or they're not immoral.
Well, the whole point of veganism is to tackle the perception of other animals. It's not about suffering. It's to tackle that perception that other animals are, a rhino is valuable because of the horn, or a, a pig is food for some people. The whole point of veganism is to tackle that perception. It's not just it's not the utilitarian view that we shouldn't cause any suffering, because if that was the view, then any vegan would be really would be obliged, or well, any vegan would have a problem with running in the park and killing some insects in the park while
Mm-hmm.
running, jogging.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a stupid argument. We cannot defend the argument that we should cause the least amount of harm. That's very problematic.
Well, why
Because
why do you do it then if you have to care about harm somewhat, right? Like I
yeah, the
get that
harm.
you're saying it's about the exploitation of animals, but why do you not care about harm?
I care about harm, but the harm that comes from animal exploitation is the one that veganism aims to tackle. That is the point.
Yeah, and I get that, but I'm trying to figure out why. Because you're saying, well, first of all, I want to see if you agree at very least. Well, actually, no. You were saying it is immoral to consume the animal, no matter what. So the harm would not affect that. So that does make it more complicated. Because I think that's a very strange take. Now, are you religious at all?
No.
Okay. Because I've talked to a lot of vegans, and a lot of them disagree with me on a lot of different things. But I have not come across maybe one vegan that feels the same way as you on that aspect. That it would be immoral to do anything involving a body that's already dead. So that does
Okay.
make it slightly more complicated to talk about. Um, well, would you? Okay, so if you have a dead 5 year old child and an alive 5 year old child, it's more immoral to kick the alive one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's because that one can suffer from the kicking and the other one can't, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you just think because you have a level of respect for anything that was once sentient, it's immoral to kick the dead one as well?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so should we play football with that dead child's head? Just we should just sever that head and play football
I
because
understand
it's not a sentient being anymore.
I
Is
understand
that
why
your point?
yes, I understand why some people would find it disgusting. I would personally find it disgusting. I would not find it to be immoral. Um,
Really?
be, be- yeah, I would. I would because of how gross I would find it. I would view that I would have to think there must be something wrong with the person doing it. So I would be nervous about what that meant about their brain. But I would not say that this is some issue we have to tackle legally or anything. I just can't imagine. And maybe I
Do you
think
think
about
do you think it should be legal? It should be legal to play with dead humans' heads. Should it be
um,
legal?
I would
Because
want to
it's not
figure out
immoral.
how those dead human heads got there. I don't know if it should be more legal for the family of dead people to be able to say what happens to their bodies. Do you bury it or whatever? But sure, if somebody came across the idea of somebody being disgusted by something should not make something law. If somebody came across some dead body somehow and they could take its head and start playing football with it, that means nothing to me ethically. It just
You don't think it promotes some harmful behavior
promotes means nothing to me. Like marijuana could promote
or
cocaine,
encourages or
but yeah, no, encourages. Smoking marijuana could encourage using cocaine, but I don't think it should make the marijuana not allowed. You know,
not really. That's a slippery slope.
yeah,
That,
that's what I'm saying. Like that's what isn't that what you're referring to? The encourages is a
but
slippery
it's not a
slope.
slippery slope. It has happened with certain animals, and it's what happens with cows, pigs, uh, dogs in some part of the world. So
Yeah.
it's the idea. It's the just the idea that they are food for some people is harmful.
Hmm.
That's the point. That the the just the thought that those animals are food is harmful. That is the whole point.
Hmm. I guess I just can't get behind that. I mean, just the way I think things through, I have to look at an action and figure out if it's right or wrong. And that just seems like more of a religious based idea. I can't care about something that's not alive. A dead person is like a rock. They are not sentient. They are dead. I don't believe in souls. So I get what you're saying, and we don't need to get hung up on this too much.
Mhm.
I just I just can't. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't believe that consuming eggs is harmful?
Consuming eggs,
Yeah.
from everything I've looked into, I think it is harmful based on cholesterol and a handful of things. Yeah.
No, 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 but not harmful to you, but to the species that we are exploiting for the eggs.
Oh, I see. The consuming it itself, like if I was out in nature going on a walk and some chicken left an egg behind, I would say
Yeah.
no. But how we have it in factories, yes. And having it in backyard chickens, yes.
Okay, so but you're not against the consumption, fucking shit, consumption of
Mhm.
eggs if the chickens are treated well, if the hens are treated well.
It has nothing to do with the treatment. I don't think we should treat them anything. I don't think we should ever be near them. I'm not if somebody wants to consume an egg they found out in the wild and that a chicken left behind, that is fine. I don't think we should own animals and have them in our backyards or have them in factories. But the thing itself, the steak, the egg, the milk,
Mhm.
none of that. I don't personally find those things immoral. It's how we got them. It's the fact that we took these things, we domesticated them, and then we forced them into areas and used them. But I don't feel any connection to these things.
Okay, so if you find a horse in the wild, it's a wild horse,
Mhm.
and the horse is asleep, and you take the hairs of the horse's tail and cut them. The horse doesn't realize that you are doing that,
Mhm.
and then you make a violin bow with the horse's hair.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Is that
don't
is
think
that is that vegan to you?
No, I don't think we should take from any animals. If they leave it behind, if I lived out off the grid in the wild and I figured out how to farm and animals like some kind of wild ruminant animal left their feces behind, and I could scoop that up and use that manure to help grow my stuff. I don't mind using something left behind, but I don't think we should use any force.
Mhm. But even that is creating the or perpetuating the idea that we should have animals somewhere somehow to get the manure. Because that's what veganic farming is about. Veganic agriculture is about
Yeah,
getting rid of even the manure.
yeah,
You
no,
know.
I would love the idea of not needing a manure. I was just pointing out that even in that, I'm trying to come up with examples of what elements of animal products I'd feel comfortable using, and it would be something that I knew that animal didn't have any need for itself. So I just meant in the wild. I would use the resources I had that I didn't feel like were directly exploiting any animal, and preferably indirectly as well.
All right. So you're against animal use, or it depends. Do you take the consequentialist approach, or do you really reject deontologically animal use?
Um, what can you describe to me? I see. I usually I oftentimes do like to talk in philosophical terms, but I usually break down my meanings for how I think animals should be treated. But what are you referring to with the consequential approach?
That you don't reject anything categorically. It depends on the outcome. So
Oh no, so I reject plenty, but the outcome does matter as well. Like
mhm,
for the extreme example, if I was on an island and I had to eat a chicken or something to survive, I would eat the chicken to survive. To me, the most important thing I probably look at in life would be my own health and survival, followed by the health and survival of my loved ones. And
mhm,
then after that, as long as I have enough resources, I have enough food, shelter, then I would want to cause as little suffering and force as possible to any animal slash human animal. Yeah.
mhm. But do you believe in rights, animal rights or human rights,
Natural rights.
moral rights?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like okay. Yeah. Like so, I would afford humans and animals rights from my actions, the way I described, as long as everything else was taken care of. If I was on an island with my wife and with you, and my wife was starving, I would definitely murder you in a heartbeat to feed my wife. And I'd murder a chicken to feed my wife.
Mhm,
But which is why I think it's tricky, because throughout most of human history, we have had just as hard of a time as the animals. Most animals don't survive. Most humans didn't survive. Everything was trying to survive. But now that we're able to and we have these advancements, I think we can go, I don't need to eat this burger just for taste. I can try to cause less and practically no harm and suffering.
mhm.
But morals have to be either, or sorry, not morals, but what was the thing? Rights. Rights. The only way I can imagine looking at them is we have legal rights, and then we have the rights that we individually decide we will afford to something else. I don't believe like there's any rights within nature or anything like that.
Yeah, but do you realize that those moral dilemmas don't debunk or don't refute the fact that humans should have rights?
Um, I think we should legally have rights. It doesn't
Mhm.
debunk that. I think the best thing humans could do before we were in a big society was to make a society where there were legal rights. We had the right to not be killed by each other, the right to not be physically harmed by each other, and then things like property rights and whatnot. But
Okay.
outside of that, just living in nature, I
Mhm.
think the more moral thing would be to afford rights to each other, not kill each other, live as peaceful as possible. But
Mhm.
if I need water, I don't even. I think my instincts would just kick in, and I would have to not afford somebody rights if I needed to take their water from them. It's really hard to know for sure what we would do in a survival situation.
But yeah, do you realize that that's what we're trying to do with veganism, to have some sort of moral direction and some sort of normative, ethical aspect
Hmm.
that we should abide by?
Yeah, yeah. And do you mean also illegal, like a legal set of rights?
No, not really. Moral,
Okay.
more than legal, just a moral obligation not to exploit other sentient
Mhm.
individuals.
Yeah, no, I have that same moral feeling, and that's what I like to do. That's why I have this channel, and I like to share that moral philosophy with others.
Yeah, because it seems like you're only opposed to animal factory farming,
Mhm.
and and
No,
that
I just think that's the most important aspect.
okay. But
Well,
should
because
we oppose all farming, all animal use, or not really?
yeah, I think it's tough at this point as far as like a legal aspect. I think it's almost maybe too new. Studies and whatnot, you have too often you'll have um, very well educated people saying, "Oh no, we need to eat only meat, or we need to eat paleo," and all these different things. And I think it's too new to put it into law. But I, as a moral framework, I
Mhm.
definitely think like that's what I push towards is that because I've been vegan 8 years. I don't feel like I have any need for any animal products. I think from everything I've studied that nobody does. We probably are something like chimpanzees. We have a frugivore type system to do well on, and so I think for the most part that we can survive completely without animals. I just like to be realistic and know that it might be a bit too soon to legally force everyone to do so.
Yeah, but I don't think veganism is about legal changes. It's more about uh, like a perception change,
Mm.
like paradigm paradigm change.
Mm.
The way that we think of other animals. That's what veganism aims to change.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, no, and I'm fully on board for all of that. But I think I think the reason that it makes sense to feel how we feel about animals mostly comes down to their ability to suffer.
Yeah, kind of, but yeah, just sentience is
Yeah.
what we consider important to grant moral consideration to animals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's what they said, like back in 1945 or something. Um, Watson said, like, okay, the purpose of the vegan society is to oppose the exploitation of sentient life. So,
Mm.
so they had that idea from the beginning. But what we need to realize as vegans is that it doesn't matter if some action causes less suffering than other. We reject categorically the use of other animals so that they are finally emancipated from humans. That is the
Mm,
purpose. So
gotcha.
if a hunter kills a deer with a like a really good shot in in the brain,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter that he didn't cause much suffering. And maybe some vegan in some city it caused more suffering by eating some potatoes. I don't know.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. We reject categorically the use of animals as resources. That is the
Yeah,
purpose. It's
and
not about suffering.
I hear what you're saying, but the problem is if we are willing to kill animals in defense of our food, which I'm not saying I don't I do not defend the crop deaths argument. I'm talking more in hypothetical because I don't know the numbers. But if we are willing to kill animals in defense of our food, if 67 million birds are dying from insecticides and various different things, then the suffering of them should matter when we decide the approach we do. If it causes less suffering to eat only meat than it causes to eat only vegetables,
Mhm.
then I feel like what the movement we should want would be for everybody to eat only meat. But that would be
Mhm.
only if that causes less suffering than the other. And to
Mhm.
not want to be in favor of a movement that focuses on suffering, I can't see where the moral stance is and why it would even matter to fight for animal rights.
Because it's about their liberation, their emancipation from humans. But let me tell you this: like, are those people using those pesticides or any toxic substance um, to kill other animals? Are those farmers vegan? Are they vegans?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I guess we could look at it
Uh,
both ways. Hypothetically,
I,
let's say they are,
I,
and hypothetically, they're not.
I would think that vegans would choose to grow food in hydroponic, you know, hydroponic. Um, I don't know how to say it, but greenhouses or something like that. But if they are not vegan and they are causing that harm, and we really cannot know. I
Hmm.
if I go to the supermarket, I don't see there's no seal or there's no sign that
Hmm.
it has used some pesticide and it has for sure killed I don't know how many birds or rodents. If I don't
Hmm.
know that, why should I go out of my way and try to you know uh, I live in an apartment, so should I try to have like my own my own um, food production here like I
Hmm.
don't know. It's to me,
Yeah.
it's it's not useful. It's not useful to demand from other people to try to create a movement of people that have to grow their own food in their apartments. It's not useful at
Hmm.
all. And this conversation about crop deaths is just uh, uh, futile. It's just it's not making any sense. It's like we are not saying that we are not going to harm any animal at all. We are saying that
Hmm.
we reject animal exploitation. That is the whole point.
I know it's a simple thing to say. I guess that's just the concern I have. I guess I just morally I can't understand why somebody would be in favor of that versus the other thing I'm talking about. And the not being able to, like, there's no sticker that shows how many animals were killed for the crop or whatever. It's kind of like when people buy burgers and it looks like a nice burger to them. They're not seeing the bloodshed, you know? We need to become as aware as possible. We need to have these protections for animals. And I don't know the best approach to do it, but if if we are putting these chemicals out there, if we're putting something out there for rats to go and get, and then imagine the suffering and pain
Are
from
we?
them dying,
Are, are
like
we? But
that's
are
probably
they the
uh,
farmers who are not vegan? Because some vegan can come up with maybe ultrasonic stuff
yeah.
to repel rodents and
Mhm.
just put some ultrasonic device around the crops and rodents would be gone from there.
Oh, I
Something
agree.
like
We
that.
should.
But they are not
Mhm.
vegan. The farmers are not vegan.
Somebody, a farmer being vegan or not, I don't think matters because you could have you could have a butcher at be a butcher of meat technically be a vegan themselves. They're just doing their
No,
job. It really the outcome is what matters.
no.
Well, more so what you're putting in demand. It doesn't matter if they're vegan or not. If you're purchasing the food that they're supplying, then we should do our best to keep trying to do bigger and better, to keep hoping that the science gets better at creating sound wave machines like you're talking about to make the rodents go away. I, I'm not saying the thing I'm saying as a reason that I think we should like eat meat and not crops. I'm just pointing out that if you are willing to eat something that causes more suffering than another thing, that just makes me concerned about the moral stance. But then again, I said I'd play football with a 5-year-old Ted, or at least I don't
Yeah.
find it immoral. So I guess we could each have this separate stance. But you are stating that even if both elements of food were equal, the apples and the steak, if they were equal in health, you would consume the one that caused more harm in the hypothetical. And I guess it's just a difference of opinion, but I find that wild.
No, it's just so you don't have a stance really about like cannibalism, because cannibalism might be better for the environment or whatever, or
Mhm.
it might be better in terms of suffering. If we consume the dead bodies of humans, it would be
Yeah.
better for everything instead of
Mhm.
an apple. So you should, if some of your family members die, then you should eat them
Well, I care.
according to your own set of ethics.
Ethically, yes. I care more personally. I care more about health than anything else.
But
So
let's say that it's vegan. It's
mhm.
vegan. It's healthy
Yeah.
to eat. I don't think that most cannibals, by the way, are getting any um, unhealthy
Okay.
by
Well, I
eating
guess
humans.
it's hypothetical anyway,
What
so it's fine.
was Ed Gein? Ed Gein was unhealthy?
I'm not
I don't
sure.
think so. I don't think so.
I'm not sure, but
He
yeah,
he didn't look like.
but yeah, I mean, for me, as long as the health is there, myself and my loved ones are taken care of, the health is all covered, then yes, I think from that point on, um, the the rest of it, as long as you are not causing suffering or taking away rights to live. I mean, I think we mostly agree on that, anyways, because you were saying it would be better to kick a dead person than an alive person. Um,
It might be better to kick a child-year-old's head than to demand the football uh, from Pakistan, from some child exploitation, uh, which is what happens sometimes with the
yeah,
footballs.
yeah. Do you not agree that that would be better? Like
No, I
if
don't
that
think that we should normalize that. I don't
I
think we
don't.
should normalize eating the dead bodies of family members. I don't think we should normalize eating animals at all. I don't think we should normalize eating roadkill. I don't think we should normalize that. It's about that.
I
We are
don't think
not.
we should. I don't think we should normalize it either. But we each have our different preferences of things. Like I don't really care about football or basketball, so I don't do those things. But so I guess to me, like if it's wrong, it's wrong, and if it's right, it's right. And I just it's gonna. I doubt anything will ever convince me to care about something that's dead, that is not sentient. It's not going to come back. I just don't care about it. It's just
You don't care
distasteful.
about the normalization of that idea
Well,
that we
imagine
should.
this. Imagine there was a tribe off somewhere that was like let's say like less civilized than what we imagine. And let's say that their tradition was whenever somebody died, they took the head and played soccer with it.
Mhm.
And this was like to maybe because their favorite sport in this tribe is soccer, and whenever somebody dies, they want the last thing that happens with them is that part of them became this fun game, and that to them is very normal. Where to us it's disturbing. Every culture has its different things, and the question is, are you doing anything actually wrong? And when something's dead, I just can't imagine that.
Okay, so imagine that human ears become a delicacy.
Okay.
So some people in some parts of the world begin to or start to eat human ears as a
Hmm.
delicacy, and then the prices go up, and then people pay like $700 for a human ear. You
Yeah.
don't think that we should or we could expect that some humans are going to be without an ear?
Yes.
Uh,
Okay. So this is how I view fake fur. And this is why I agree with you on the idea of not normalizing things. So
mhm.
I do not think it's immoral to have fake fur, but I also do not think we should normalize it. So I don't think if I told somebody my personal opinion, I'd say I don't think you should buy that fake fur coat, and then when people see you on the street, they might think it's just normal fur and it'll make them want to get a fur coat because they don't know it's a vegan coat. And so the normalizing is not good. I agree with you
Yeah.
that normalizing could be worse overall for the outcome. So therefore, it would be best if it didn't happen. But I do not think it is wrong or immoral to eat dead grandma, to play soccer with a 10-year-old's head, or to wear a fake fur coat. It's
Mhm.
not immoral, but there can be benefits from not normalizing it.
But I think that complicates things even more. If you're eating a hamburger, a vegan hamburger in the streets, people might not know that it's a vegan hamburger, and
Mhm.
people might just get tempted to go and eat some non-vegan hamburger.
Yeah.
So it we are just complicating things for everyone. It's not like yeah, I don't really like faux leather or faux fur,
Mhm.
but uh, I don't really care. It's not really my priority uh, to to make people stop using fake fur. Well,
Yeah.
it's not my
No,
priority.
I don't think
I
it's
think I
priority. I
think
don't
it
think it.
I,
Yeah.
I think we could reach some point where vegans or fake fur is just the norm, and
Mhm.
nobody sees that as uh, the skin of an animal. Or
Sure, sure, yeah, and it can go either way, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that will play out. I guess I'm just pointing out that that's kind of how I view the ear thing and the grandma thing and all these different things. If it's not causing any harm to anything, then it doesn't matter. But if it is leading to some issues, then it makes sense. Like if people are being kidnapped and having their ears cut off because that's a delicacy, then I could see it making sense to it's approximately like the fur thing. Somebody might see fur or see somebody eating a burger, and then they'll go eat a burger or get a fur coat. And just like the ear thing, they might, if it's a delicacy, then somebody might get kidnapped and have their ears cut off. And I think we both agree and disagree in a sense. Because what I'm saying about the fur and the burger is exactly what you're
Mhm.
saying about the ear.
it,
That
it,
there could be a downside to normalizing it.
I think it's worse to eat roadkill. I think it's
Worse than
worse
what?
than fake fur. It's even worse.
Really?
Yeah. Why should we normalize eating roadkill?
Okay, so it's worse if people are aware that you did it. Okay.
But should we normalize dumpster diving?
Yes. Now,
Well,
I think that people should be aware that they might like hurt themselves in the dumpster, and there might be needles in there and whatnot. But the actual consumption of a real meat burger that was thrown out that a homeless person or whatever wants to eat and consume, um, yes,
should we normalize people eating the leftovers of non-vegans? Just it's not in a dumpster.
yeah.
It's just a non-vegan just
Mhm.
finished his meal and left some dead body parts and some animal secretions there. Should
Yeah,
we not
so
normalize eating those?
I don't think we should normalize it, but I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's not vegan. I
It's not vegan. It's That's the whole point. That's why I'm saying that you are not abiding by the definition of veganism that was created by the founders before.
no, the definition where you, well, again, it depends on what exactly somebody would mean by exploit. And I don't think exploit would include something like a burger in the garbage that is going to waste. Now, if exploit
Um,
means directly the word use, therefore
yeah,
you are using that thing, but
yeah.
exploit usually has um well, at least I'm curious to hear. Let's see. Louis Ghetto says in the comments, the reason why I partially agree with David and Carson on this is because one could hypothetically eat roadkill while simultaneously not contributing to normalizing killing animals for our benefit. Um, yeah.
Well, that's what we need to clarify because animal exploitation, defined by Leslie Cross, was animal use for selfish purposes. That's it.
And that's why the
If you
definition needs to
use
change. I
if
think the
you use
definition's wrong.
well, then you should not call yourself a vegan. That's my point, because you are not you don't agree with what the people who created the term, the
Mhm.
people who coined the word vegan was were the ones defining it, and you don't agree
Mhm.
with that. Then
Well, yeah.
why call yourself a vegan? Then
Well,
you should call yourself a painist. You know the
mhm,
painism. You're against causing pain, and
mhm.
that's a different movement. It's a different strain of thought, or I
Yeah,
don't
I mean
know.
that's
But
probably the better movement. I actually wish veganism would be
then
more like
then
that.
then stop using the word vegan, because the word vegan is the opposition, the rejection of all animal use, with the purpose of liberating animals from humans, not with the purpose of reforming animal exploitation.
Yeah, I don't think most vegans would agree with you on this, and I think
I don't go by the ad populum.
oh, for sure. I'm not
I
saying
don't care.
sorry.
I don't care if most vegans don't know the history of
I,
veganism.
I'm not
I don't
saying
care.
that you should care what they think. I guess I'm just pointing out again that things change over time, and not that it needs to change completely. If you look at like religious groups, there's many denominations of Christianity, and they'll believe slightly different things, but they're all still like of their religion. You could take like political movements, like libertarians. I consider myself mostly a libertarian, but it doesn't
Mhm.
mean I follow everything libertarians do to a T. I have like that's the closest thing I fit into. So veganism, I don't think that we should own animals. I don't think we should harm animals, kill animals, eat animals. All these very well. I don't care if we
But
eat them if they're dead. But
if you
but
agree with dumpster diving, that's not veganism at all.
yeah, I just disagree, and I want the definition to change. But I also don't.
But
I
why?
don't.
What? Well, then you can create your own Painism movement, or why? Why are you entitled to change what the people who coined the term defined? And they spent like 7 years doing it, and
Mhm.
they had a lot of meetings. And after a meeting, they agreed upon what Leslie Cross wrote in 1951, and that's the definition that we should go by. If you don't agree with that, then you can call yourself a utilitarian, or maybe a painist, or I don't know, software-centered, suffering-centered, I don't know, consequentialist or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right, and
But
maybe
not a
that's the
vegan.
best approach to get to go. I'm not sure, but can you let me know with the exploitation of animals in the definition? Did it say non-human animals or just
Yeah.
animals?
When Leslie Gross defined animals, he said sentient creatures other than men,
Okay, gotcha.
literally. That's
Gotcha. Okay.
that's that's why it is important to know the history of the movement. It is
Mhm.
important to read the papers that they wrote. That,
Mhm.
that
No,
they had a
that's a fair point. But I don't think. Okay, let's look at other movements and see if you feel the same way. I mean, would you say with like political movements that if you look back at like, I don't know if you're familiar with the U.S. politics or anything, but I believe the Democratic Party started back with Andrew Jackson, the seventh president, um, and things were wildly different, and they had a way different stance on things. Or if you just even look at like Republican stances today versus Republican stances 20 years ago, I think Republicans 20 years ago look more like. Or sorry, Republicans today probably look like Democrats 20 years ago. Movements change, people adjust what they do. I'm not saying they all should, and maybe veganism is a specific type of one that should not change. But look at feminism now compared to feminism 200 years ago.
Yeah,
Things change.
that's what I'm trying to avoid. That
I see. So your
even
personal opinion,
even women don't agree with feminism if
yeah,
we are talking about the third or fourth wave of feminism. Right, that's what I'm trying to avoid. That
yeah.
the movement gets so distorted into the least amount of harm and suffering and all these things that are not uh, what the forefathers of the movement wrote, and that they like what they wanted to communicate that the movement was about. And we are just having endless conversations about crop deaths as if it was something that had to do with animal exploitation at all, and it's not. It's not what they
Hmm.
envisioned. Uh, it's completely outside of the realm of animal exploitation.
Well, okay. Well, how about this then? What if what if you had a farm and you had all these crops and you had a gun, like a typical gun that people use hunting, and
Mhm.
anytime you saw an animal come up to try to eat some of your crops, let's say like some pigs or bunnies or whatever, and they came up to eat it, but you were growing it for yourself, would it be a vegan act to shoot that animal as long as you didn't consume it?
No,
Okay. So not only is
because
this part of crop deaths as well, which again, it's just something I think we need to work on as people. It's like you
yeah,
said,
sure,
these probably
sure,
aren't vegans that are doing it and they need to
yeah,
do it.
exactly.
But if the kale and the apples and the other things that you consume, I consume, um, if that action is happening, we are paying for that act to happen. Now, at
Yeah,
this point, the best thing to do would be to hopefully be able to afford to purchase stuff from vegan farmers. Until we can, we got to do what we got to do. But
how
this
how
act,
useful
Mhm.
sorry yeah, but sorry, but how useful would that be for the movement if we just um, make people not only reject animal exploitation but also buy organic stuff that is more unaffordable than in or, uh, I live in Latin America.
Mhm.
We don't have that privilege of choosing that organic stuff. Like most people won't buy the overpriced fruit just because it's
Yeah,
organic. And then what
no, that's kind
how,
of my
how
point.
useful would that be for the animals? if we just
I agree.
demand from vegans that they also have to buy organic stuff all the time, or
Mhm.
maybe even grow their own food. That's
Yeah.
completely
No, I agree completely. That's my argument. That's I feel like that's what I've been trying to tell you is that we have to do what's best for the animals. And
yeah,
to me it sounded like you were
what's
saying
best.
it's all or nothing. It's but the problem is that not only are you saying that you shouldn't be able to kill this animal that's trying to eat your crops, but that you can spray the crops with something that will make the animal that eats it die. It's the same. It's the same as shooting
But
it.
it's not that we can. It's not that we can as vegans do it. Is that we don't have a choice, or maybe or the choice is
Mhm.
very unaffordable for most people. So
Yeah,
it's unuseful. It's not useful. It's not practical to demand from people that on top
yeah.
of rejecting animal exploitation, that you have to look for the organic fruit, organic
Oh, I'm not
legumes,
talking about
organic.
demanding it. I'm not talking about demanding it. I think it's an interesting conversation to figure out the best way to work towards the most vegan future.
I think it opens the door. It opens the door. It opens the Pandora's box of excuses for non-vegans to come up with. Well, but you vegans as well. Like the two quirky fallacies and all the
Hmm.
stuff that we normally see in every vegan versus non-vegan debate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is what they hang upon. That they rely on that. They just use that against us
Well, I
because we
don't.
are also talking about that as if it was part of the movement, and it is not. It is part of the movement of the painism movement, of the suffering centered, of the consequentialist utilitarian movement, but it's not part of the vegan movement.
But you can't pick and choose. If you're saying it's not vegan to kill an animal that's going to eat crops,
Yeah,
then
but it's
if
that
you buy those
we don't
crops,
know. But
yeah,
we don't know if that happened, or and
I know.
it's not a zero harm. It's not a
Yeah.
zero harm movement. It's we cannot know if that happened for sure, as opposed to
Mhm.
the burger that you said, like, oh, but if someone eats a burger with dead cows, like, many dead bodies in a body, well, it's obvious that they are paying for animal exploitation. That's
Mm.
obvious.
Okay.
They are
Okay.
paying for that deaths,
Well,
for
somebody.
those deaths.
Okay. Louis Gatto said, use sentient animals using roadkill while. Oh, no, sorry. I already read that one. It was the Leslie Cross one. He said, I've not seen Leslie Cross opine on consuming roadkill being wrong to consume so long as by doing you're not promoting. Oh, no. Maybe that's not the one. I read one that I thought was really interesting and then I lost the comment. Leslie Cross appears to be referring to exploitation of sentient animals.
Yeah.
Roadkill is not sentient.
Uh, but that's that's a whole issue. But if they kill an animal, and that's it's it's like non-vegan saying, well, I didn't kill that animal, I just ate it. Yeah, you know,
Well, it depends
I
on
just
if somebody
it's it's the same. The
no.
exploitation of dead bodies is included in animal exploitation. It's we are not we shouldn't think of the of the hairs of the animals as resources. That's the whole
Mhm.
idea. That's the whole point. To reject all animal use. That's the whole point. That, uh, I don't know why
Yeah.
we are hanged like we are getting stuck in the suffering thing, and it's very troublesome. It's creating a problem for the
Mhm.
for the movement itself. Like that's what non-vegans use against veganism, and
Yeah.
they don't even understand what veganism means. they think it's about suffering. So, but you also cause suffering.
Hmm.
If we reject animal exploitation, uh, that's very easy to refute. But if we are about suffering, then yeah, well, we also cause suffering. So
But it doesn't mean that it's either all or none. Like so my
no, no, no.
stance
It goes
about,
beyond. It
well, no,
goes beyond.
I just mean the suffering part. So I think we should not cause suffering.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that if I do cause suffering somewhere else, then I want to go, okay, never mind. I'll just cause suffering to everything. That's kind of how the anti-vegan approach is to it. They'll say you cause suffering here, so you should just not care if people eat animals.
Mhm.
The goal should still be to cause as little suffering as possible. But suffering
That's very,
has to,
that's very subjective. It's it's not a defendable position. As little suffering as possible. If instead of eating one bowl of rice and beans, I eat two, then I'm causing more suffering.
yeah.
So vegans shouldn't repeat their rice and beans bowl. They shouldn't eat another one. That's it's very undefendable.
It's hard to defend it, which is why I think the definition needs to be
So
somewhat loose. And then,
vegans shouldn't travel. Vegans should be anti-natalist because every single human being created is going to cause more suffering. So vegans should be anti-natalist according to your definition. According to my definition, that doesn't happen. It's only the rejection of, well, not my definition, but Leslie Krauss and the early vegan society with Donald Watson and all these figures that wrote about it, and
Mhm.
they spent 7 years discussing it for for some reason.
Yeah.
It's a, it
No,
wasn't
and I
about
think it's
suffering. They didn't agree upon, okay, veganism is the reduction of suffering. They didn't say that because they knew that people were going to hang on to that and say, well, you also cause suffering, and it's stupid to take that approach. It's going against the movement. It's uh, we are we are always talking about, well, but vegans use cell phones and vegans use
mhm.
um, fossil fuels, and that's it's unproductive. It's
But how do you, I don't get how you justify it though. So I don't know what people are
I,
referring to when they say something like the cell phone thing. But if the cell phone thing, whatever weird thing it is, if it's putting in demand the need to harm an animal, like I get that we have the practicability element of it, and just like you were talking about, we can't just all buy organic and all this stuff, and we might need a cell phone, so we have to do the best we can.
mhm.
But that definition includes all this wiggle room. But you're saying the suffering
how
definition.
how do you well, okay, sorry.
No, it's the
Sorry,
same
sorry.
thing. Yeah.
Just finish. Okay. How do you justify to create another human? How do you justify to have kids?
I don't think I would look at potential elements in the future as right or wrong in the moment. It's within our nature.
It's a huge harm. It's
Mhm.
we are not talking just
But
about,
it hasn't happened yet. That's
but
the
it's going
problem.
to happen. It's
Um,
it's like
it would
it's like
depend on what you mean. But here's the thing. Here's what
tons
I'd
of
say.
carbon emissions, tons of carbon emissions, tons of animal deaths,
Well,
crop deaths,
I never
tons of
go
them.
environmental. I don't know enough about environmental issues
But
to
that's
talk about carbon emissions. But
correct.
I will say that animals, including humans, they have a natural want to have offspring, and they create that offspring. And I have not been convinced that people should not.
That,
Um, yeah,
that would be an appeal to nature fallacy.
I don't think that's a fallacy. I think that is a
Appeal
perfect
to
place to.
nature. Well, it's my nature, it's my instinct.
Mhm.
But I am entitled to cause that great harm to other animals, which I know that are going to be harmed, even if that kid is a vegan. Animals are going to be harmed because we vegans also harm animals. So
Mhm.
if I really take your approach, which is the suffering one, then you should be, or I should be also, an antinatalist and go against human procreation, because it's going to cause a lot of suffering, a lot of it. And your position is undefendable. My position, or well, Leslie Cross's and Donald Watson and the early vegan society position, is to reject animal exploitation. It's very easy. Is a very easy position to defend.
Yeah,
Your position
I
is
think
not.
it's I would agree with you. I think your position is probably more easily defendable against people that are going to try to pick apart something. I think my position is better. I think it's more right. I think it's more
Yeah,
moral.
oh, yeah. You can try to include all human ethics inside veganism, and use veganism as a platform to talk about all human ethics and all human harm, which
Mhm.
is hurting the animals, because
Oh, I don't factor
nobody,
humans into
nobody,
it.
nobody is going to join a movement if we have to buy organic stuff. We cannot travel. We cannot get on a
Yeah, I
plane.
don't push for
We
that.
cannot. Well,
I
that's
think
your
those are
position, because
no,
your
I think those are
position is
interesting things to
causing the
talk about.
least amount of harm, means that you cannot travel. You should stay at home. You should walk everywhere. You shouldn't use fossil fuels. You should whatever, the least amount of harm. The least amount of harm is nothing. Is It's very subjective. Is or we can stretch it as far as we can, or as
Ex-
far as we want.
Exactly, and that's why it's not hard to defend at all, because it could be up to each individual and them talking about
Yeah.
why they think one thing is right or wrong
I
within
can
it.
say, that you are not abiding by your position. You're using uh, a lot of electricity, which causes
Hmm.
harm somewhere in the environment, and that harm to the environment causes suffering to
Hmm.
some animals, and etc. And yeah,
And
and
I
I
think
can
we
say
should.
you are not your ethics are not the ones that you are living by.
Yeah, I don't agree. I think we should all do our best to learn about all of these different aspects and do the best we can as soon as we know any of them. Um, I just personally also separately
That's
have
right.
a focus on non-human animals and not using any force to them or causing suffering to them.
That's only a part of it. It's like the cruelty that stems from the idea that they are resources. That is what we are trying to abolish, not all suffering. Then we are going to with then we are talking about all these jungle police utilitarians that uh, think that they are vegan, but they're talking about getting rid of odd order predators and all that shit that doesn't have anything to do with veganism. And
Hmm.
and we are just uh, it's like, do feminists have to talk about when two women fight against each other? Do, do do they, is that a feminist issue? If
I do
the
not think so.
Exactly. Uh, if animals, if a shark eats a seal, that is
Mhm.
not a vegan issue.
Correct. It could be an issue of sort. Sharky Cecile.
It's a painism issue.
Hmm.
If you're a painist,
Hmm.
that's your issue. Then
Uh,
okay, well, reasonable
Possibly,
pain.
yeah.
If you say you're reasonable painist, I wouldn't have a problem with your channel. Okay, reasonable
Yeah.
painist.
Well,
Okay.
I guess the reason here's I guess here's how I look at it is I think of veganism. Um, no matter whose definition is happening, I think of veganism as being a moral topic involving non-human animals, and the definition that it started with, the Leslie Cross definition, or Donald whoever, Donald Watson. That there's that definition, any for in my mind, the idea of talking about the ethics of non-human animals is the conversation of veganism. And I get why if you like the original definition, it would be irritating if other people went different directions. I am irritated by 90% of what vegans talk about and do, and I think it's very irritating. And I don't mean ones like you, the way you're talking. I actually mostly agree with everything you're saying, but many of the approaches that vegans take, I think, are very wrong. But everybody has their different things. Maybe there should be another word for it, but the idea of discussing ethics of animals, as of right now, I just think of that as veganism.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least the veganism conversation doesn't like, the definition isn't ethics of non-human animals. The definition can be various different things.
Then feminist or anti-racist should talk about when two people of the same skin color harm each other, and who are we going to defend, and all those stupid conversations that are similar to what vegans also, or utilitarians, I would say. Utilitarians talk about, like, okay, well, the shark or the seal, or the lion or the zebra, or
Well, it's complicated because it's easy. We know who are of the human species. We definitely know who is in each of our countries. Like, we know that I can't like make a big stance for all humans in the world of what's going on. But I know that, like, the laws in my country could say you cannot kill another human. You cannot punch another human for no reason. But when we talk about animals, especially all the way from the ranges of an elephant down to an ant, if it were easy to make it not acceptable to harm or kill any of these, this would be an easy conversation. But it is not. When you get in your car, do you have a car?
No, I don't drive.
Are you against
ride a
driving?
bike. I ride.
Okay.
No, not
Okay.
really. I
So
don't like it.
Okay, if you look at the front of any car, they're covered in insects. Now, I don't have a strong stance on insects. I imagine they're lower on what we would call the sentient scale, but they're covered in dead bugs just splattered all over cars. And that's because we recognize that the benefit of getting an ambulance to picking up somebody dying, getting them to the hospital, is more important maybe than these thousands of mosquitoes getting hit by the car. We don't live in a world where we can't call it doing the best we can, instead of this flat out, if you kill or harm this animal, then X.
Yeah, no, it's like these insect deaths, unavoidable or maybe very difficult to avoid, are not part of veganism. That is not animal exploitation. We are not using them for our own purposes, which is a really
We're
reasonable.
using them to move them out of our way. They are in an area in the air above our street. And instead of letting them be there and knowing that if we drive at certain speeds, we're going to plow through them, instead of saying we're not going to use them to get to where we want to go, we do use them. We don't use them as in we're not having them drag us there. But the word use is pretty complicated. And you're not using a rabbit to shoot a rabbit that's about to eat your lettuce you're growing. But you were saying within veganism, you can't shoot that rabbit, right? You're not using
Right,
it, but you're stopping it from eating your lettuce.
Well, but you are benefiting from that death, which is yeah, we cannot we can disagree on this maybe, because I would say that's some sort of exploitation if we really think about it. Like, okay, if I'm profiting from that death, then that might be included in the exploitation realm, or the exploitation area, or I don't know how to call it. But do you see what I mean? But it's
complicated.
the point is that veganism is not about harm because of that. Because if we say that it's about harm, then we shouldn't jog.
Hmm.
We shouldn't jog
Oh,
in the park
well,
because we
so
are going to harm maybe some
yeah,
spiders or
something dying
ants.
on accident is like I can't imagine living in a world where I have to worry if I might step on a spider or an ant. I don't know if we will have something in the future that makes me worry about this, but I don't worry about this. Most of what we've talked about today does come down to the definition, and I really don't think suffering is a huge element of the definition. The thing that I constantly talk about where suffering is a big issue is that when you live in a place where where something is legal that you think is wrong, you think something's immoral and it's legal to do, and the majority of people do it, then you have, in my mind, you have to have a focus to get them to not do it. And so if you think of where, in my mind, the thing you would want to focus on in that case would be the suffering. I don't think it's the overall goal. But if I could get somebody to go hunting and kill this deer that doesn't ever have to suffer versus eating beef from a cow that's been forced in a small area and suffers, it's branded and it has to be chained up and have its baby pulled out and ripped away and taking milk from it and all these things, I would much rather somebody kill a deer and eat it in this world where people eat animals. So that's why I think humans should think about the suffering element. I'd rather a free range pig be eaten than a factory farmed one where the teeth are cut out and the tails are cut off. I think we should look at the suffering while we have to go baby steps.
Yeah, but do you realize that veganism was created to go beyond that suffering, to go beyond that?
Yeah.
It's not, it doesn't stop at cruelty.
Mm. You,
In fact, the word cruelty is rarely mentioned by either Watson or Cross. If you
That's
read,
because that they're referring to what you can become in the movement. You have become that and I have become that. But the people in the world that are eating animals have not become that. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to think of what might be the best approaches to get people to become either like me and you or close to it. Why are you shaking your head? What's wrong?
because that's the welfarist position. That's the some sort of Melanie Joy or Tobias Leonard, some sort of BS. To be
No, but
honest,
it's not a
yeah.
welfarist final position. It's
It's
a
that
welfarist in the process of turning them, making them, if they happen to be more like us.
no, but it's not a reduction of suffering. It's not about reduction of suffering. It's about the rejection, the categorical rejection
Hmm.
of animal use. But it's
Yeah.
an animal liberation movement. They call it like that because
Y-
it's not about reforming exploitation, and that
I
it's not about reducing animal consumption. It's about changing people's minds about animals. That they stop perceiving animals as resources, as commodities, as food, as
yeah.
clothes. You know.
I agree with what you're saying, but like imagine I had a room of 100 people, and all of them were meat eaters, and let's say like five of them. You could tell them the vegan message of what you're calling the vegan message, or what I'm calling the vegan message, or whatever. And five of them are willing to go vegan, but the other 95 are not. If we knew, let's say we could press a button and we knew that the best approach to get the other 95 to go vegan would be something due to the effect of having conversations with them about suffering and cutting back, meatless Mondays, having 5 eggs a week instead of 10 eggs a week, using grass-fed stuff instead of whatever, and then week after week, month after month, conversations with them after they're thinking about these ideas and being a welfarist, being a reductionist, and then over time they become that vegan. That would have to be the right approach, right?
No, not really. Not really.
What?
The
How could it
message,
not be?
the message is one. It's not. It's not. It's like feminists saying, "Well, what if we called for beatless Mondays?
Yeah.
Like let's do a campaign so that all these violent husbands don't
Mhm.
get home to beat their wives on
On
Mondays.
Monday. Yeah, that'd be great.
Is that something that you would promote, or
Yeah, that's fucking fantastic.
really?
If a woman
I,
gets
I, I
beat
wouldn't promote that.
7 days
I
a
would
week,
say that it becomes an excuse so that they can beat their wives on
yeah,
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and so on.
yeah,
It becomes an
sure.
excuse.
There can be excuses. I
It
don't know.
becomes it's completely uh,
Hmm.
you know betraying
Hmm.
betraying the victims. It's like they don't matter at all. It's not.
No,
We are
no.
not talking about any moral obligation. It's just
Well, I don't know
uh,
about moral obligation. We're talking about people that are beating their wives, or just beating women, or whatever the
we are,
hypothetical
we are
was.
letting them. We
And
are
we're
we
talking.
are just we are allowing them to do it on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays with our message that only Mondays should be beatless Mondays.
Yeah, no,
That is
and
that
that's
is the message.
incredible.
That
No,
is the
that's
message.
yeah, that is a message. That's a
Oh,
good
is that
message. It's
well?
good.
That is
Well,
not a feminist message. I
it,
would then a feminist would say, well, you're not a feminist, and I, as a
well,
vegan, I would say, well, you're not a vegan if you are promoting meatless Mondays,
well,
because that
feminism.
is not the vegan message.
By
You,
definition,
you,
feminism is about legality, so it wouldn't be about the moral side of it. But I am open to the idea of definitions changing. And now that more things are equal legally, feminism probably should be about the morals. But anyways,
you
the good thing about the beatless Mondays, which I've used that phrase before as well. It's the same as meatless Mondays. So if because somebody wants to be environmentally friendly or whatever, and they cut out meat on Mondays because they've watched Cowspiracy or something, not only is that person more likely in the near future to go vegan because they're thinking about it, they're consciously doing an act, but if they are acting upon it, if they do meatless Mondays, they're not just doing it for fun. They're not going to add more meat the next day. They're truly saying, I can't give up meat, but I want to try to help because I care about this cause. So they're doing a thing. If you could convince people that were beating women if somebody punched a woman once every single day and then they did it, but then they skip Mondays, the people that will love that, I guarantee you, the goddamn women. The women being punched will love to take one less punch. Same thing with the pigs that are on farms that don't have their teeth cut out and their tails cut off. Would love that compared to the teeth cut off and the tails cut off.
then you would promote not the human rights movement, but the um, I don't know, the less suffering uh, movement, which is very different from human rights. If
I
we are
would.
promoting human rights, is that the idea of a beating, or the idea of someone killing another human is already rejected from the beginning. It's a
Mhm.
deontological cause. It's a deontological approach to human rights.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, here
yeah.
let me give a more comparable example. So in the 1840s, women did not have the right to own property. They did
Mhm.
not have the right to their children. If their husband divorced them, the husband keeps the kids. So women don't have the right to their kids. They didn't have the right to vote. And there's a bunch of things they did not have the right to do. They didn't have the right to work. So the difference between what I'm trying to promote with veganism and what you're trying to promote would be if at this time when women didn't have the rights to do any of these things, they also didn't have the right to get a divorce. Um, when women didn't have the right to do all these things, if I was trying to help convince people to pass laws like let's make it so women can own property, and then if that would be me, that would be me saying let's do this thing, and somebody might say, oh well, do you think they should also have this and that? And I'd say yeah, they should have all this freedom, but let's pass a law that they can own property. And then David comes in and says no. We only will pass the law if they get to own property, vote, have all their freedoms all at once. And that's the thing. All of those laws that I listed came in one decade after another because you push one in, and once that's legal, that's secured. They have that. And it would be just like pushing in regulations to make farms have to have cameras that make sure that they're not torturing their animals, and all these baby steps that eventually lead to a more vegan world. But it's all about convincing more people and being reasonable.
No, that is not my point. My point is whatever regulation that is going to be passed in laws are going to be, like single issue campaigns, or welfare reforms. They are going to be just that. We are trying to promote an ethical principle. It's not about laws. So if the ethical principle is watered down into, well, you can violate animal rights on Mondays, or on Tuesdays, or whatever, then the message is completely lost. The
But here's the
message
thing.
is that we should not have the right, or that we don't have the right to exploit animals for human purposes. That is the message, and
Okay.
that we shouldn't just water it down because people might find it more convenient. It's not. Then you are in a welfarist movement. Then it's not a vegan movement.
So
The
I want
vegan movement is not a welfarist one. Either well, even if that means reduction of suffering, because
gotcha.
we are an abolitionist movement. We are trying to liberate animals from humans. That is the whole point. It's not about suffering. You are talking about suffering. You're talking about reduction of suffering. That's why your approach might be more in touch with the Tobias Leonard and Melanie Joy and Peter Singer stuff, which is not vegan at all.
Yeah.
Which is
Well, I care about the
is that-
animals. That's it.
it's a degeneration. It's a distortion of the term, which is very very problematic for the animal liberation purpose. That is the whole goal of veganism.
For sure.
You
Well,
understand that?
So
Because it perpetuates the idea that, okay, animals are resources. We just shouldn't be so cruel to them.
but that's not what I think. That's not what I think.
But that's the message that you are sending if you promote meatless Mondays, for example.
I
And
only
so-
promote meatless Mondays to a person that won't do meatless every day. I'm not going out there trying to get people to do meatless Mondays.
But that's like saying, well, if you're going to abuse a child, why don't you sleep in Mickey on the child's drink? That is something like that. It's like, okay, but if you're going to do it less cruel, less abusive,
Any
less
harm,
less harmful.
yeah, any harm that can be committed that I could convince somebody to do a better version, a less harmful version, anybody should be for that. But the main thing it comes down is the legality. We don't go tell people don't go murder somebody because it's already illegal. So whenever we talk to people about what they should or shouldn't do, we're talking morals based on what you are allowed to do, if you're allowed to do it. And not that I need to point out this distinction, but yes, if it was legal to abuse children and abuse wives and all these different things, the less of it, the better. You don't want to.
Do you realize that the promotion of these, like, for example, if we promote, let's say that we are in the times where slavery was legal.
Okay.
And we are just promoting less whippings.
Yeah.
Or no whipping on Mondays or something like. We are just sending the message that it's okay to have slaves.
Strongly disagree.
If we say that, we are just encouraging people. Well, okay, it's okay to have slaves as long as they are not whipped on Mondays.
No,
It's
because first of all,
that's the message.
nobody that
And
would be spreading the message that I'm spreading wouldn't be somewhat telling people the idea of veganism on a whole, anyways. Like, so in general, I talk about how you shouldn't kill animals, you shouldn't harm animals, you shouldn't own animals, all these different things. But also, if people are going to, then you can add these different things in. Yeah, if you could add in an element that legally slave owners couldn't whip their slaves and somehow could have kept track of that, that would have been an amazing regulation to have been put in. It's
But
like right now you can legally do like cows on farms. If there is nothing legally stopping people from kicking their cows, then putting in a regulation would be better for the cows.
don't you think that if people had not promoted the regulation of slavery, slavery would have been abolished way sooner?
No,
Don't you
I don't
think
think.
that?
Other way around.
I think so.
The
Well,
closer you
because
get it
we
to
are
abolish
perpetuating perpetuating the idea that humans should be enslaved just in less cruel ways.
I don't
And we
think
are
so.
doing the same with the animals. We are, yeah, that's why I think that you shouldn't call yourself a vegan. That's because if you don't believe that veganism is the path to animal liberation, then you just
Yeah,
well,
no.
you
I
can just
definitely.
call yourself, well, I'm a welfarist.
I think my
And,
definition of veganism,
a
welfarist,
new
and
welfarist, a new welfarist maybe,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
maybe you wouldn't promote bigger cages, but you would promote the idea that people should just reduce their animal consumption, or they should buy less leather, they should something like that.
yeah.
But
That's the
that is
road.
not veganism. That is not the
Yep.
vegan message. The
It might
vegan
not be
message
veganism
is
to you. I think it's the
no,
road to
it's
a
according to the
vegan world.
definition of the people that created the term and founded the society and created the whole movement.
Yeah.
That's the
So I want the
definition.
definition to
It's not my definition.
be. I want the definition and the movement to be what gets animal liberation the soonest. And I think it's clear that this is what's going to do it.
Then you believe that what was before veganism was the path. So, like the welfarist movement before veganism with Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mills and all those people that were just worried about suffering, that's the movement that was before veganism. That's why the Vegetarian Society didn't want to end all animal use. They didn't want to abolish the dairy in their vegetarian society. So that's why
Mhm.
Watson and Cross said, well, we should create our own movement, which is not a welfarist movement, is an abolitionist movement about all animal use. All animal use should be abolished. That's the message. If you're not, if you don't agree with that message, then why do you call yourself a vegan?
I agree that all animal use should be abolished for
That's
the
the
most part.
message. That's the message that should be spread. It's not that you. Well, I think that is the message for me, but not for the people. For the people, is that's just reduction. Then you're not a vegan because you don't agree with veganism being the path to animal liberation.
Correct. Us vegans spreading the message all or nothing it cannot be the path, right? It cannot be. I don't know if mine is 100% right or if it's some kind
Then
of
you're a
mixture of the
welfarist.
two.
Then you're a new welfarist.
Yeah.
Call yourself
But the problem,
reasonable welfarist, and I wouldn't have a problem with your.
what's the outcome of welfarist views? What's the outcome for the animals? Or what do they want?
The outcome is that we are perpetuating animal exploitation more centuries to come, because people are just very happy to buy some happy chicken's eggs, or happy.
So
Yeah,
you think it'll last
they are
longer?
just
Interesting.
comfortable with the happy exploitation idea that they have in their minds, and we are not about cruelty. We go beyond cruelty. Yeah, we reject cruelty, but we reject all animal use regardless of cruelty.
Yeah.
That is the message.
But here's the
that
thing.
is the vegan message. That is the difference between the vegan message and the welfarist message.
Yeah, it's all right. And hopefully someday the vegan message catches on to do the right thing. But the problem is these people are eating animals. They feel fine doing it, and they need to be talked out of it. And if they're not talked out of it by the absolutist vegan message, they might be talked out of it by cutting back and thinking about it, having in-depth conversations, and so on and so forth. It's the problem I have with the typical vegan message is that it usually stops there. It's like, if you don't agree to go vegan today, then you're not in our group and we don't whatever. It's not, there's no benefit to it.
That is not the activist responsibility to why are we responsible for how people get to the point that they don't exploit animals?
Do you not see that as the problem, though? I know you're not responsible, but I'm actually making myself responsible. I'm wanting to do everything I can to help animals. You're wanting to do everything you can to create a vegan. You're wanting to do, and I don't mean that in a negative way. You're wanting to push this message that you have a clear thing on, whether it works or not. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
It's not whether it works or not. It works. That's why we have millions of vegans at the moment. It works. It worked back in 1944 during the Second World War. So it worked. It works. Why should we change it to a welfarist message before 1944? Why should we change it
for the
and
animals?
Call it veganism? That's even worse. When we change the message to a welfarist one and call it veganism, then we are going backwards. And we are just committing some kind of fraud with the term, and some kind of, we are betraying the animals, and we are just perpetuating exploitation, because we want people to feel more comfortable with a more watered down message. And
No. No. And it's not changing. I think the issue is, it's kind of like people eat animals because they don't see what happens in the farms. I think the same thing's happening with vegans. Vegans they themselves are vegan, but they don't recognize the harm they're causing by having the absolutist message happen. And so here's the problem. If you're on the street talking with a non-vegan and you can't convince them to go vegan, if they're just like, I'm not going to go vegan, if you could convince them to reduce what they're eating at that moment and don't, the only thing you did was cause harm to animals. It has to be. It has to be. Tell me how could it not be?
Our anti-racists are anti-racists causing harm by saying that they shouldn't be discriminated, that the police in the United States shouldn't be killing a lot of black men, mainly black men, just because they're black. It
would depend. Your comparison would have to depend on if
their message was like, well, you should just kill less. Maybe
yes, not, always
maybe
kill
not,
less.
Maybe not 8 people a month. Maybe just 3 black men a month.
The reason the comparison doesn't work is because I'm sorry, but it involves the idea of legality. That is an important element. If we're talking people into reducing animal consumption, we're talking about something they're legally allowed to do. Police officers aren't legally allowed to kill people, and there's nothing within the law that says they are allowed to. And if there were, then we'd want to change that law. But the comparison would have to involve something where people have options of different things they can do. Because I'm referring to telling somebody that's already said, I won't go vegan, to, well, would you be willing to cut out meat on Mondays? That's an option of something they can do. When it comes to being racist or killing somebody, there's not an option. So I need an example that involves options.
No, that's allowing people to think that they are entitled to exploit animals.
But we're already telling them they're
Just
not.
in just in less cruel ways, which is the welfarist message, and that's my whole point with this.
But
If you're going to
I don't know.
use if you're going to use the word vegan in your channel, then then explain what veganism is and abide by it, or use the word in the sense that it was meant to, but
Mhm.
meant to be. But if you're sending a welfarist message with the vegan label on it, then I disagree completely.
Well, okay, but hold on. Let's just talk. I just want to talk about this one element real quick, though.
you're making the movement a lot less weaker, and it's an animal liberation movement. It's not a welfarist movement.
You're right. It's an animal liberation movement, and I agree with you. I mean, I think it's also a welfarist one. I mean, anyways,
No,
the thing is, I need to
go
figure out
beyond.
how you feel. Well, I know, but I need to figure out what is letting you, in one sense, not care about what happens to the animals while sort of caring. So listen, just please, I want to repeat this part. If you are sitting at a table talking about veganism with a non-vegan, and they kind of agree with some of what you're saying, they kind of like what's going on, but they say, I couldn't do it, I couldn't achieve it, I'm definitely not going to go vegan. The fact that if that person were convinced to, since they're not going to go vegan, if you could at least think about cutting out some hot dogs and eating less meat and this, that, and the other, that the overall harm to animals would be lessened. I just don't get why that, how on earth could that not be better than not adding in that last part? Like, please tell me.
I disagree. I disagree because you're sending the message that rejecting animal exploitation is not a moral obligation, that people just can just choose whenever they want to exploit an animal. And the message, the vegan message, is that humans don't have the right to exploit animals. That is the message that is going to get us closer to animal liberation as soon as possible. If we water down that message, animal liberation will not come about
Hmm.
for centuries to come, and we are going to be stuck in the welfarist position forever. It's like, and you think it's going to reduce the animals' suffering like right now, but what about all those millions of trillions of animals that are going to keep being exploited because you sent the wrong message? Because
Hmm.
you're telling people, well, if you're going to exploit animals, do it less cruel, or do it less
How
times
could
a month. You know,
I don't
the,
get how that could be the wrong message. I really don't get that. But it's all
the,
right.
the,
If you're right that it will lead to more suffering in the future, of course. If I thought for 1 second that was right, then yeah, of course.
the,
But there's no way of knowing that, and I think it's very unlikely. It
do you realize that
doesn't make sense.
if they had thought that in 1944, then we wouldn't have a vegan movement at all. Then it would be like the Jeremy Bentham welfarist movement, and it wouldn't be a vegan movement, which is an abolitionist movement against all animal use. We reject all animal use so that animals are finally emancipated from humans. That is the whole message.
Yeah.
And it's going to get us closer to animal liberation. If we water down that message, it's going to perpetuate animal exploitation forever.
Yeah, I mean, we're already watering down the message. We're already doing it like you were describing. Not everybody can afford organic. Not everybody can do this or that. If you shoot a rabbit, that's about. No matter what, we're gonna bring it down to something. The problem is, I just don't think we split it far enough. We have to care about the animals. And if you think I would rather this message be strong while animals suffer instead of prevent the suffering,
Are you
the
really preventing suffering
yes.
by like condoning animal exploitation if they just do it
It's not
less times,
condoning. It's
less times a
saying
month,
if you
or
refuse
less
to
times a
do
week.
if it's saying if you refuse to do the thing that I'm recommending. If I say morally it's wrong to kill and harm animals, but if you refuse to join us vegans, then I would like you to do anything you can that's better than nothing. If you got people to do that in any number, one person could save
Yeah,
tons
like
of animals,
yeah,
but imagine a million people did that. It would just be everything happens in a process. It takes a while for humans to get on board to moral decisions. Look how long it took to make gay marriage legal. Look how long, like, people naturally are fine with holding on tight to what they were raised to believe. Interracial marriage wasn't allowed, at least in the US, until 1960. It takes a while to change hearts and
yeah, I know.
minds. And so most people don't like to just abruptly cold turkey everything. I did. I was perfectly fine with going from eating animals to being vegan because that's my mindset. I am a type of person that worked out for, and I'm sure you were somewhat like that as well. But I know a lot of vegans that it took a little figuring it out. They were like flexitarians at first, and they weren't sure what to do, and it took them some effort. So I've experienced this many times where I'll be nice with people and have conversations, and they'll slowly cut out some things, and they'll either go full vegan or maybe not quite full vegan, but their life choices are working towards this future of this good thing. I don't know.
Okay, so now that you talk about it, that's a good time to put myself as an example, because I was a vegetarian, because I thought it was okay to use animals, just not be cruel to them. And so I thought, okay, well, they are not killing. I thought that they were not killing cows for milk. So I
Mm.
thought, well, it's okay if they are not killing chickens for or hens for eggs. So it's okay if I consume those products, because I didn't have the right message. If a vegan had told me the right message, I would have gone vegan sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a vegetarian for about like 2 years, maybe, and I didn't know. I didn't even know that veganism existed at the time. And then
Mm.
I met a vegan, and they told me that it was like all these people that try to be as that try to cause the zero harm, or try to cause the
Yeah,
least
zero
amount of
waste.
harm.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
it was a very bad explanation of what
Mm.
being vegan was. So
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while to really understand that the vegan movement is about not using animals, not rejecting all animal exploitation, even if when they are dead. If a bird dies, it's not like I have the right to take the feathers and put the feathers in my pillow. If
Hmm.
I'm vegan, I reject that, even
Interesting.
if the bird is dead, because I
Mm-hmm.
reject the idea that animals are resources to be exploited by humans.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's cool, and I'm glad you like that. I think the problem is, I don't think you're looking at my view in an honest way. I think it's being pushed to an extreme that it isn't. Because if I would have met you when you were vegetarian,
Mhm.
or before you turned vegetarian, my message would have been the one that led you to veganism. I would have had a philosophical conversation with you about why we should not use animals in any way and eat them whatever, and then you hopefully would have been vegan. But if you wouldn't, then
But,
the
but,
other
but, but
aspects come in.
but then I would say, well, it's okay to dumpster dive, and you would say, yeah, it's fine because it's
Yeah,
already
we all have
it's
our slight different choices. Almost everybody in the comments agrees with you way more than me, but none of them agree with the dumpster diving part. So not that that matters. I'm just pointing out that all of us have slightly different things. I think most vegans wouldn't care what you do with a bird feather. I believe Native Americans used to have like feathers in like their tribal like headgear and stuff. A feather
yeah,
from something dead. I don't
and
think.
then all the beauty queens are now just have feathers just to look more regional, and all those feathers are not from dead birds that they just found somewhere. All
Mhm.
those feathers are from farms that exploit birds for their feathers.
Yeah. No, and I
You
don't
know,
think we should
do,
have
do
those.
you know? Do you know that the whole idea of using animals leads to that?
I get what you're
Can we have?
saying, and I think it's something we should try to get around. But I just, in the same sense that you have such a strong stance on what veganism means to you, I feel very strongly on not wanting to muddy the waters by having any focus towards what to do to something after it's already dead. It seems pointless to me. But I don't have any like disrespect for your take on that. It seems a bit more on the like the faith based, like not faith, but like almost more of a like a of I don't know, a spiritual type take on it. But it's just your opinion, and it's great, and how you're acting. Hopefully, you wouldn't want that put into law, that about what somebody could do with feathers that either fell off of a bird or from a dead bird. Um, but I don't know. I don't
It's not
know.
about laws. It's about changing human perception of other animals. It's not about laws. I don't care
Yeah,
about
and
laws.
okay,
Uh,
yeah,
There,
no,
there,
and I like that.
there are laws about about theft, and people are still stealing from each other. But I don't care about laws.
Yeah,
It's not about laws. It's about the
interesting.
perception. It's about the paradigm that people have of other animals as resources, as commodities, as chattel property.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
so I don't care about laws. The
Ha-
laws are going to be welfareist and single issue campaigns. They're going to abolish, bullfighting, maybe here in Colombia, which is still going on. Maybe
yeah.
there it's going to be the first thing to go, and people are going to keep people who vote for that law are going to keep consuming cheese and dairy and meat from bovines.
But
Even
you don't
people
think
who
it's good for that law to go in place?
uh, uh, I really care about the message behind that, because if people who uh, eat bovines and dairy and cheese, or well, all these products, and use leather and use leather belts or leather shoes or leather jackets,
Hmm.
if those people are going to feel fine because they voted against bullfighting, and they are going to be to believe that they are the defenders of their victims,
Hmm.
I don't think it's a good idea to to send that message. So uh, it's going to happen. It is going to happen at some point. Uh, Most people are going to reject bullfighting it, so much that it's going to be non-profit. It is not going to be profitable anymore to organize bullfighting events. But but that is not the issue. The issue is that people understand that uh, bovines deserve not to be exploited,
Hmm.
even if it's behind closed doors in an abattoir. You know,
Yeah.
if we are not sending that message, we are perpetuating the exploitation of bovines behind the doors that where people just feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable with the cruelty in arenas, but they feel
Hmm.
comfortable with the cruelty behind
Yeah.
the slaughterhouses,
Yeah, I
the
mean, so
walls.
this is kind of like the baby steps I was talking about that I think happens with every movement in history, where it's like the women getting the right to own property, but they didn't get the right to get a divorce or to whatever. Um, I think each of these steps are very important, especially in a society with laws, Having a law that you can't have bullfighting, and then having a law where you take out rodeos, or a law where you can't have elephants in circuses, and then a law where you can't use mink for their fur, you're slowly but surely getting closer to a more humane and eventually vegan world. And without those steps,
Not really.
it won't happen. No, it has to be. What
Not
do you
really.
mean? Why is it with every movement on earth
All right.
then? Why would it not happen with veganism?
Okay. How many countries in the world have bullfighting, or how many countries in the world is legal to have bullfighting events?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
8.
Okay.
Are the rest of the countries where bullfighting is not legal, are they less speciesist? Are they
Yeah.
are animals dying less in those countries?
I mean, I don't know, not every
No,
single country,
no.
but I'm sure in the U.S. there's more animals dying
Is
than most places, for sure.
meat, dairy, and eggs consumption uh, less, or it's are they eating less meat, dairy, and eggs because they don't have bullfighting arenas?
Hmm. No, no, I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
but the I
what,
the idea.
why focus on just one practice that is very cruel, and most people just reject because it's cruel, and they don't like to see what happens there.
Yeah,
Uh,
it. I think
why
it.
focus on that?
Mhm. I
Why?
think it makes
uh,
sense to focus on. Most people don't want to think of themselves as bad people. Most people, they because they eat meat and they hear that eating meat's bad, they just want to shut that out. But if they don't go to bullfights and they can look at it and go, "Oh, that's a horrible thing happening." If they don't wear fur, they can go, "Oh, we don't need to take fur off." And so it's easy for them to make these changes. And the more stuff we narrow down and get fixed and take away horse racing and dog racing and dog fights and cockfights and all these different things, the more you narrow it down, the fewer things you have left to fight for. And you can figure it out and learn about these things. People learn as they go. You ate meat before you were a vegetarian. I ate meat before I was vegan. We all eventually learn things that make us go, wow, how did I not think about this before?
why not say that right away instead of saying, well, it's wrong to torture bulls in an arena?
Yeah.
Why not go to the vegan message instead?
Because it will cause more harm and it'll take longer to do the vegan route.
Not
If you
really.
say you need to
Why?
end eating meat and end bullfighting all or nothing, then nothing changes. But saying end the bullfighting is like saying let women own property.
What?
You
What?
take every individual
What?
win.
Why are you thinking that you are somehow so morally superior to the rest of the population? I don't think that. I think if we send the right message, maybe the most honest and most like moral or ethical part of society is going to be changing, and we are going on our way
Yeah,
to
but
what we
But why
really,
can't you do that at the same time as trying to end bullfighting? I don't know if you know more about bullfighting than
because we
I
are
do.
sending
Or
the wrong message. We are sending the message that what happens in an arena is worse than what happens behind the
but we are
walls of a slaughterhouse.
no, but we want to end the slaughterhouse and the bullfighting one. So we're not sending any wrong message. It's just one of those happens to be more achievable sooner, so that one happens to be achieved. But we aren't sitting back and only talking about one.
Listen, I have met people who have been here in Colombia 20 years, have been fighting against bullfighting, or have
Okay.
been protesting against bullfighting, and they are vegetarian, and they
Okay.
know vegans, and the vegan that the organizer is a vegan, and they know all the vegan, they know all the stuff that happens in dairy production, and they are
Mhm.
still have not decided to go vegan, but
Yeah.
they go every time there is a protest against bullfighting. They're there, so they go out and protest against the most public kind of torture, but they are not
Hmm.
against what they do, and
Yeah.
that's a problem with that
Yeah.
That's the problem with those single issue campaigns, that they only
Oh.
they only serve as like conscience alleviators, or
Hmm.
they are just there to soothe everyone
Again,
who
we
is
have.
participating their conscience while not being vegan.
Yeah, we might have different, different opinions, and that's fine. I think you're completely wrong here because I think the single issue campaigns are the most important things in the vegan movement, and like ending SeaWorld and these kind of things, because slowly but surely the laws are changing, and we're seeing a change in how people are. People used to wear not only fur all the time, but they would have like fox furs around their neck where there's the fox face and the tail and the feet. And then slowly but surely, all these things change and go out of style. And ending any type of animal oppression is good. I don't know if
Have you,
bulls are bred to be bullfighters, like, or
ha,
to be bullfighting bulls. But if you end bullfighting in a country, then the people that would breed the bulls to be to do the bullfighting, they would stop breeding them. So you'd have a whole set of animals that aren't being harmed anymore. This is
and
wild.
and then, well, have you seen what happens in these fur protests, with
Mhm.
a lot of people wearing leather in those protests? Have you seen
Sure.
that? Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah,
not too familiar with that, but sure. Hypothetically, I can imagine it.
why is
Yeah.
that better? Why is that better? That they feel like they are animal defenders when they protest against fur,
Well,
and
first of all, we all
while
have our
wearing
different
leather,
levels.
while
Yeah,
wearing leather.
but when me and
That's
you,
that's
but yeah,
that's
when me and
that's
you
the
used
problem
to,
with not sending the right
I
message.
know, but me
We are
and
not sending the
you,
right message if we're just taking one issue and saying
no,
that, okay,
those
that
people can,
like the
probably reach more
exploitation.
people than us.
It's like feminists defending only redheads with blue eyes.
No, no, no,
Like
no.
it's like
Not defending
it's like
only. You
it's like
defend
one
the whole
percent.
thing,
It's
but
like
then you
maybe
also
like 1% of the population is redhead with blue eyes. So a feminist
no.
go out and they say, well, this has to stop. The sexism against redheads with
No,
blue eyes has to stop.
no, 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 no.
Not the other
No
sexism.
way. That a lot of people say this, but that's
That's the
not how it
message.
is. You don't just support one thing. You can say you want veganism on a whole, but also separately, you can be an individual that goes to a fur protest, and you can go to a SeaWorld protest, and you can go to a not rodeo, but a bullfighting protest.
Why
But
why lose time? Why waste time? Why waste time sending just that message instead of promoting veganism?
for the
That
animals,
that that is going to be
because it's not
closer.
one or another.
The end of animal exploitation is going to be closer if vegans promote veganism instead of going cause after
But
cause.
there is no
If
promoting veganism. If you go to any vegan YouTuber and you just
that is not
look
promoting
at,
veganism, that is just going after a cause which seems to be more cruel than the other,
okay, we'll
and
go to
people just
any
reject that.
go to
But
any vegan
it's not promoting the idea that humans should not exploit animals
that
at all.
that individual act about being at a protest about bullfighting. Sure, it's not promoting the entirety of veganism. That's one day and one protest. If you go to any vegan
Why waste
YouTuber
time?
and what do you mean? Wait,
Why waste time
okay,
sending the wrong message?
okay, so
It is
uh,
bullfighting worse than that what happens in a slaughterhouse.
okay, so if a vegan
Is
if
bullfighting worse? Because
well, hold
even if
on.
we Mhm,
I was
okay.
just gonna say, if a vegan YouTuber has one video they made that was 20 minutes about how horrible the dairy industry is, but they didn't talk about chickens, they didn't talk about killing killing lambs. Why waste time? It's because not
If
everything is telling the entire message at once. You tell individual messages.
you can send the right message at the end of the video, you
You
can
could, yeah.
document what happens in a dairy farm or whatever, and send the right message at the end of the video. No animal should be used by humans. Animal exploitation should be abolished or something like that, and you can do it.
Hmm.
But if you are going to focus just on one cause, one practice, one cruel practice, is not going to get us
Like, I don't
where
think
we.
that's a good use of time. I agree that, but day to day, it's fine. I would. You don't think anybody should ever go to a single issue
You know what would
protest?
happen? You know what would happen overall to
Hmm.
bovines in Colombia if bullfighting is abolished, or well, is prohibited? Well, it's
Okay.
prohibited by law. You know what would happen to bovines overall?
What?
Nothing. The same that was the same amount per capita of animals killed is going to be the same after the 20 bulls that die in an afternoon
Yeah.
in a bullfighting event.
Yeah.
Those are the same bulls that maybe one neighborhood
Yeah.
of here of this city, Bogota.
Mhm.
Those are the same amount of bulls that people eat in just one sitting.
Um.
Nothing would
Sure.
happen.
No. No.
20
No.
years,
You.
20 years of a lot of efforts, a lot of money, a lot of people going there with signs against um, the torture in an arena. 20 years of that instead of instead of promoting veganism, which
No.
if they had promoted veganism 20 years ago and had used all those resources to promote veganism, we
Mhm.
would have more vegans here in Bogota, which
I
would
don't.
be a lot better
I don't think
for
that's like.
animals
I don't know if that's likely
than
true, but what I will say is that yes, the number of bulls doing
per capita.
bullfighting, yeah, the number of bulls, it wouldn't be a crazy number, but there's a handful of things. First of all, people wouldn't increase their eating of bulls just because bullfighting ended, so it's not going to increase. We're going to have
No.
any individual bull that isn't bred into the industry is a good thing, but specifically any that are harmed. There's a huge difference. I care a lot more about bulls getting stabbed by swords during a bullfight and bleeding out and this whole suffering than an individual bull that gets killed quickly and dies. So sure, but sure, more bulls are harmed in eating animals. So if we had to choose, I would rather people stop eating animals
if
and have bullfighting. But cutting one out is great. How could you not be in favor of
if
ending bullfighting?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. It's not that I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of ending bullfighting, animal exploitation everywhere. It's like I'm in favor of ending, I don't know, horse racing or uh,
Hmm.
dog racing. Or I'm in favor of it, but I'm not going to campaign and waste time in just one type of exploitation. Well, when I can promote veganism instead, if I make the
Yeah,
people go
that's
vegan,
fine.
I think it's a much better win for the animals than just abolishing just one practice that maybe it's not even 100 bulls that are killed a year. Every season, every bullfighting season is like it's not even 100 bulls,
Sure.
which is what the amount of bovines that you see,
Yeah.
like uh, uh, like with their noses pierced with
Hmm.
one rope attached to one to a tree, and just so that the calf doesn't drink the milk of the mother, which I see it like every single time that I leave the city in even in bicycle or you know.
Yeah. Well,
So
well,
why
I think.
why do you think that this is more morally permissible than
Well, I would say.
bullfighting?
Well, I'd say anything going towards the right direction is good. The fact that humans see bullfighting and they recognize an immoral thing happening, it means they're capable of recognizing that using animals
It,
for their meat is bad.
it,
And so we have a vegan future.
it,
Now, I
it
also think
means yeah.
sorry, I also just think that that each of these things happening and being out of the way so we don't have to focus on them anymore. Once the bullfighting's done and the circuses are done, then we're all at the same protest. We're all at SeaWorld until SeaWorld's done. Now we can do most people I know that go to a SeaWorld protest, they go to a fur protest the next week. They're not focusing just on one cause. It's just that it's easier to push a message, especially to certain people, if a protest is designed or a petition is designed for one topic.
No, that, I think it's harmful to have that kind of moral superiority over other humans, because I don't think I'm more ethical than the rest of the population. If I could change, if I could become a vegan, then my vegan message can reach other people that might also change, not just that they don't go to bullfighting arenas, but
Yeah.
that they reject all animal use for human purposes. That
But
is the message.
But what
That
must
is
you
the
be
idea.
doing on that day? If there is a protest to end bullfighting, what would you have to be doing in that day for that couple hours that you would feel spread the message more? Like, would you need to do like a live stream? Would you have to do table talks outside, or just existing as a vegan? Like, why can't you go to that
I,
protest as well?
I have gone to those protests to
Mhm.
veganize people who are against bullfighting.
Oh, and yeah, no, that's great. They're
And I
probably the
talk to
best people to
them,
talk
and
to.
I talk to them and I say, well, if you're against this, why are you not against this and this?
Yeah, no,
You
that's
know,
great. And they are probably the best people to talk to and win over.
not
I'm sh-
really. They are
Oh no.
very, uh, as I told you, like I have met people that have been 20 years
Okay.
protesting against bullfighting, and they are vegetarians. They are not even
Okay.
vegan.
Okay. So
So
what I'll say is, any of these people that we could imagine talking to that are very like extreme in their no, I'm going to eat my meat and I'm going to eat my dairy. If that's how those people are, and if we're not talking about changing laws, then the best thing we can do for animals is to get those people to do less.
the
What else? There's
best,
nothing else to
no,
do.
I disagree. The best
For
thing that
those
we can do
people.
for animals is to educate people on veganism and why it is a moral obligation, and not water down the message.
I don't see it, man, but but it's all
And
right.
that and that is what the forefathers of the movement envisioned, and that is why I reject the use of the vegan label,
Mhm.
uh, while they are not promoting veganism, and they are just making people believe that veganism is
Yeah,
about
but
suffering or reduction of
if you're
cruelty or
outside playing
whatever.
basketball, that's not promoting veganism. Other things existing exist. Now I know that that's extreme because I'm connecting the two where I'm giving the vegan message as you would give it, and then also I'm trying to get people to reduce if they won't go vegan. Um, but
Then you're sending conflicted, just
it's far from
contradictory
conflicting.
messages.
No, it
You're
just
saying, well, it's permissible, it's permissible, it's you're allowed to do it. It's not
uh-huh.
a moral obligation, but if you're going to do it, just do it less.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which
But
is which is
you're saying
very
somebody
different.
can't have two stances. I
Which
can't
is
be
very different from
complete.
saying you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't have the right. You shouldn't feel entitled to do it.
Yeah,
It's a very different message.
but
Why send two different messages? Why?
I send billions of messages. I'll send them the
Why?
message of animal liberation, but I'll also send a message about what I think about like abortion or what I think about circumcision. I can have all kinds of different messages. Even if I think that animal liberation is where it's at, it needs to be that nobody uses animals whatsoever. I also separately from that think that if this person eats 2 burgers a day and I can get them to eat one a day, that's great. And you can call it a separate thing. You can say when I switch
Right.
over to talking about reductionist welfare stuff that I, at that point, and now I'm not talking about veganism anymore. I'm talking about welfareism. But that doesn't mean that the vegan part wasn't the vegan part. I wholeheartedly think that humans and animals shouldn't even interact whatsoever. And that's my vegan stance that I'll have with people. But in the same conversation, since it's about non human animals, I'll also maybe have a welfarist approach. Is there something wrong with talking about two topics at once?
Is it ethical to promote less frequent child abuse? Is it ethical to say, well, okay,
Yes.
well, if you're going to abuse children, if you're going to abuse children, then do it less, do it
Yes.
fewer times, do it fewer times a week.
Mhm.
Is it ethical to
Yeah,
promote
yeah.
that?
Not
I
only is
disagree.
that
I,
very ethical, but let's look at our current
I don't
situation.
think.
There's a big debate. I don't know. I'm curious with in Colombia, but there's a big debate here in the U.S. on if it's moral to spank children as a good thing to teach them how to be. When I was a kid, spankings came from a belt and it hurt really bad. So a lot of people think that there can be some emotional damage from that. So some people would say that slapping a kid's hand to teach them a good lesson is okay, but spanking with a belt is not okay. And so you can have these varying different things that you do, and you can say, hey, you should do this one, but not this one. I'm very happy
Okay,
that good example came up. But yeah, what are your thoughts on
well,
that?
can't you just say that violence against kids is wrong?
Of course, just like the vegan
Yes,
thing,
well,
violence
yeah,
against kids is
exactly.
wrong if you're going to
Why say,
spank.
well, if you're
No, no,
going
no.
to hit a child, hit it,
The problem is your message gets kids hit with a belt. If somebody gets hit with a belt and I say violence is not good against children, and then they say, well, I'm going to spank my kid. If I stick with my firm message and then they don't switch over to slapping a hand instead of spanking with a belt, then that kid gets hit with a belt. It's the same thing where if I say, do not use animals, they should not be used by us, and then that person is going to anyways, if I could have helped reduce the suffering, I I just think it's the more moral choice to do. It just seems clear to me.
if you're in a public space and somebody hits a child, would you tell that person that, well, if you're going to hit the child, just hit the child in the hand, not in the face? Or
Yeah.
that-
That's
really, I
yeah,
would say,
no,
you know
definitely.
what, there are better ways to teach a child than violence, and you shouldn't be violent against a child.
No way. But hey, I need to address something in the comments real quick, just because I've
Okay,
I've seen it go on for like 20 minutes.
okay.
Somebody named Mr. White is saying that I banned Garland Farms. I don't even know how to ban people. I don't even know if that's a thing on here. I've never banned anybody. I talked to JD Garland quite a bit. We email back and forth. And he's led me to understand a handful of things that I use in his favor on my conversations. And I've defended him in a few things, and I will always have him on to talk to him. So anybody that thought I banned him, I do not know how to ban people yet. And I doubt I would ever ban anybody unless they were spamming the comments to make it not fun for whoever else was wanting to talk in the comments. But anyways, sorry
A-
about that.
Actually, he relies on welfareism. His whole
Mhm.
message is welfarist. Like, okay, I treat my animals very well, so they are very well cared for, and I have the right to exploit them because I treat them well. That is his
Mhm.
message.
Yeah, and his message is better than probably
Yeah.
90% of people out there, and it's also not great. Now, I think he's an
That
anti-vegan, and he uses very crafty words to be anti-vegan. But as far as if truly what he does, regenerative farming, all that kind of stuff, I think is 1,000 times better than most of what exists today. And I would love for our world to go back to that, because that would be the step towards veganism.
all the likes in his channel are
Hmm.
likes from people who don't even consume the happy exploitation animals, that they are
Probably
just
correct.
consuming the 99% of factory farmed animals,
Yeah, they're
and
they're they're anti-vegans. Yeah.
they are sending likes to this guy because they feel that they feel like it is permissible for them to do it if those are the animals that they are exploiting, but those
Mhm.
are not the animals that they normally exploit.
Yeah.
That is what is so harmful about the welfarist message, that it just alleviates the conscience, the heavy conscience of people who are still exploiting animals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why we have to send the right message, not the welfarist one.
There's many messages to send.
No, but why confuse people with several contradictory messages?
I have zero interest in confusing anybody. I like to talk to a lot of people about a lot of different topics. I would never tell anybody that they should not have their rescue pet. But if I were going to state my stance, it would be something like that. I think that it's best not to have pets. Similar to, I'm guessing, when you preach
Why?
veganism, you're not going to tell somebody. If somebody tells you, yeah, I'm going to quit eating meat, dairy, and eggs, but I want to keep using feathers from dead birds I find, you wouldn't say all or nothing. You're not going to tell them the more extreme things, or at least I hope you wouldn't. In the same sense that I might have an extreme view of what would be best in a perfect utopia. But I'm perfectly capable of having conversations about all areas of what happens in factory farms, what happens in the regenerative farms, what happens with insecticides, and what happens with rodenticides. I can talk to people about all the things, and they can take out of it whatever they want to.
Yeah, but don't you think that I could do the same, but with the right message?
If
I
you're
I can
unwilling
talk
to say
about
things that you think are right, then not exactly. But I think you can do something like that for sure.
I can talk to them about animal cruelty and tell them that it is not the whole point.
Hmm.
Regardless of whether there is cruelty involved, we reject all animal use and the idea that animals are here for humans to uh, profit or to have some benefit from exploiting them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. And again, I don't think we're too far off. I think we kind of strongly disagree on a handful of tactics. A lot of it comes down to various things like should we focus on this bullfighting and this, that, or the other. I think me and you both care a lot about animals. And, I think you're mostly right. I think you're mostly right in the sense that the definition is what it is. I get further away from the definition. I don't agree with you that I should stop using the word veganism. In my mind, I just like the idea of changing it because it's such a slight change. But yeah, anyways, I think it was a really good talk. We're pushing on close to 3 hours, so I don't want to take up too much of your time or anything. But
Mhm.
I'm glad you came on, and I was glad to hear your thoughts. Are there any last thoughts that you have that you want to throw out?
Yeah, that the vegan message is the easiest and fastest way to go to reach animal liberation. And that's if you don't believe that, then you shouldn't call yourself a vegan. That's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And I'm not really offended by that because words are just words. Maybe I should call myself something else, and maybe you should call yourself something else. And who knows? Maybe my approach will be the right one. Maybe yours will be. Um, I hope I have the right one, and if I have the wrong one, I hope I switch over soon. Because really, I just want to do anything I can in my power in a reasonable way that will cause less rights violations and less suffering and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, the more that we water down we water down the message, the more that we weaken the movement, the longer animal exploitation will go on. So that's
Okay.
my message.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on, and maybe we'll do
Thank you.
another talk in the future. And yeah, you take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the time and the platform. And thank you, everyone who was here. I don't know.
Yep. All right. Take care.
But thank you.
All right. Well, that was wild. Almost 3 hours. Thanks for watching. For everyone that did. Yeah. Again, with the Garland thing, I don't know how to ban people. I don't know if I ever would, but I'm open to hearing all kinds of ideas, and I've talked to Garland about doing a follow-up conversation. The problem is, so far he refuses to have the conversation unless it focuses on environmental issues, and I personally don't focus on environmental issues. Anything that has a direct cause, I do. So I'm willing to talk about rodenticides and how they affect rodents. I'm willing to talk about insecticides and how they affect not only the insects but the millions of birds and all these things that die from it. But I don't focus on things like the CO2 emissions and anything environmental, global warming, any of that. It's just not a topic I'm well versed in. So I like to focus on the ethics, no matter which route it goes, if it involves ethics. So hopefully I'll have Garland back on to talk. And I do have a friend, Michael, that we're going to be doing a video together where we break down a few of the studies that Garland uses. Let's see. Marcelo says, you can do better, Carson. You have good intentions. You have passion. Put it to good use. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with various different opinions. And if you think I can do better, that's great. I think a lot of people can do better because I think the better thing is to win over hearts and minds, to get people to think, like, if people think vegans are crazy, you don't need to lie to them to trick them into not thinking vegans are crazy. But if you figure out ways to show them that you can be a vegan that's not crazy and that they might align with you, and who knows, it might take one day, it might take months of conversation. I think the idea is to win over hearts and minds. But if somebody thinks that the idea is to stand firm on something specific, I totally get that. But again, everybody's going to have slightly different definitions. Even people that lean way more towards David's opinion, I don't think most people would agree with him on that. If you find a dead bird that's already dead, you couldn't like use its feathers for something, or if you just find a feather on the ground already, or the whole thing about dumpster diving or eating roadkill or whatever, viewing those things as immoral. I just don't get it, and it seems it's a bit of a distraction. I don't mean that in a negative way that it's a distraction. I just mean that if you're trying to get people to understand the morals of animals and you're focusing on the aftermath of something already dead. But then again, I get the idea of if we have this respect for animals and we just view it across the board even after its life, then that might paint a better picture. I don't know. There's a lot of routes it can go. I think that's about it. I'm going to end it unless anybody had any last questions. But yeah, that was a fun and wild conversation. I am curious, anybody watching, do you guys agree that there shouldn't be some big focus on the individual things like ending SeaWorld or ending, he lived in Colombia, so he was talking about bullfighting ending, and that he didn't really care about, a protest to end bullfighting, because every time you talk about veganism, it should always be the whole message and not an individual thing. There he is. Okay. Because it perpetuates the idea that whatever comes out of an animal is a resource for humans to exploit. That's why it's harmful. Yeah, for sure. Actually, David, I'm glad that you hopped back in here, actually, because I always think it's fascinating to see the comments through a talk like this. And for some reason, as soon as the live is done, all the comments go away, and the only comments that will show up are future comments. So, David, if you have any interest in going through and seeing the comments, I'll just stay on here for about one more minute, and otherwise they disappear. Charlie G said, did you ever think veganism was crazy extreme before you were vegan? If so, what helped you change that view? No, I could imagine it being thought of as crazy and extreme, because so I thought of veganism on my own without knowing it existed. I just one day was pondering stuff, and I just was thinking about milk and the fact that we would have to squeeze a cow to get this out, and that cow probably doesn't want to be standing there. I remember that being the first thought that popped into my head. And so I just decided to stop consuming animal products, and then I learned what veganism was. But because I'm a person that's constantly philosophizing and I'm just like thinking, is this wrong? Is this wrong? Or whatever. I remember when I first thought about pets not being a thing that should really exist. I was the only one. I didn't know any vegans that thought this. And I kind of kept quiet on it for the most part until this past year. I feel like everybody's kind of on board, or at least a lot of people are on board with that now. And so things change over time, but I've always felt that a lot of my thoughts would come across as extreme to others, which is probably why I try to not come across as extreme when I talk to people. When I talk to non-vegans, I try to be as relaxed and chill as possible and just come at them knowing that I used to eat meat and many people eat meat, and it really comes down to sharing an idea that hopefully you can convince people of. Now, most morally wrong things are best when it to be taken care of with laws. Not everything I'd consider moral, but when it comes to the idea of suffering and like taking lives, laws can make it so you can't do this thing whether you have that moral stance yourself, and I think that's very important. I don't know exactly how that should look with veganism though. But yeah, let's see. David said, I do care. I just won't throw a campaign for just one type of exploitation. Yeah, that's what I meant. Hopefully I didn't misrepresent what you had said. And then David said, it's okay, reasonable vegan. I don't see any comments that I would like to address at the moment. I see. Okay, cool. A vegan pundit. Single issues help to chip away at the status quo. It doesn't have to be labeled vegan. Yeah, nothing has to be labeled vegan. We're all going out to do what we find to be important. And probably best, those campaigns aren't labeled as such. Oh, sure. Yeah. So yeah, because that's the thing. We always want to do what we think is important. Some people want to focus on something like abortion or circumcision, and some people want to focus on animal stuff. And really, like in my mind, if something seems doable, like he was saying that in Colombia, it's getting really close to ending bullfighting. That's amazing. That's a thing that's legal, that's horrible, that people do, that can be illegal. I don't know how long it would take, but I would love to see rodeo stuff illegal in the U.S., especially stuff where you're like tying ropes onto the Broncos to do the bucking. And I don't know how far we are away from that, but yeah, I think it'd be good to focus on that, focus on fur, focus on all these different things. But it doesn't need to be the only focus. I mean, we can talk about all kinds of things all the time. And then we have the small period of time where we do our elections and we can get petitions together, all kinds of things. We can do a lot more than we're doing. And I don't know the best ways to do it. I'm not an expert, but yeah, people should do more. They should do more. They do the best you can, I'd say. But anyways, okay, so I'm out of here. You guys have a good one. I'm going to do more of this stuff soon, and I'll post about it in my community section. But yeah, thanks for watching. And I'm guessing you're already subscribed. Send some videos to others and tell them to subscribe. Anybody watching that wants to come on and talk, like me and David just did, my email is in the About section on my channel. Go to the email, send me a message, and let's hash it out. Let's talk about it. All right, take care, guys.